and or watching to the Black Eagles podcast, a Beşiktaş talk show.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru aksiyonlar gitti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Hello, Black Eagles. Welcome back to the Black Eagles podcast. A new team for you guys because we are in the UEFA Conference League for the first time since we switched to video. Not for the first time ever, but for the first time we switched to video. So it's the first time you get to see our brand new UEFA Conference League team, which I've been working on all week to get it up and going. And you know what, guys? I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm kind of liking it more than the Europa League team we had. What do you guys think?
I think
green's a nicer colour, so I agree.
Green is not only is green my favorite color, but knowing, Con, that you're a big aliens guy,
Yeah.
I'm sure this is going to be something you'll enjoy throughout the season, hopefully. I mean, knock on wood, right? We have
Lock on wood.
a few rounds of qualifiers to work through, but
Yeah, probably, well, at the very least, I think with yesterday's result, we'll get to see this team at least, one more time for next week. Then we have a preview, so that's another, and then we have 2 more matches. So at least 4 more times, assuming, we go through, which we probably will. And then, of course, if we end up going through past the next round and go into the league stages, then we'll get at least 6 more post game episodes out of it, and we'll get probably 6 previews out of it as well. So 12 more times at the very least, hopefully. But enough raving about
Knock on wood.
our new team. Let's talk about the game from yesterday. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce both of my co-hosts. From Glasgow, Scotland, is the man with the plan and the beautiful mustache and beard, Mr. Kartal Oer. Kartal, how you doing, buddy? You feeling better after yesterday's game?
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, people might be thinking I disappeared for 2 weeks because the results were bad and I've came back now and we've won, but no, that's not the case. As Karen did state in the last episode, I was dealing with some private stuff, but that's sorted anyway, so I'm back on the podcast. And then just luckily it was a good result, so I'm feeling good. Everything's good. Hopefully we can build on yesterday. A lot of positives to take out of the game from yesterday, despite it was against a kind of weak opponent, an opponent that's not got much of a European pedigree at all, but nonetheless it's still very exciting to see the team perform so well, especially in the first half anyway. But we'll dive into that sooner. But yeah, no, very, very, very, very good game yesterday. I think it was the perfect kind of game to have after those 2 horrible games against Donetsk.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you know what? I should have introduced you as the heart of the podcast, Kartal, according to AI at least. So let me introduce the professor, then, Mr. Sinan Schwarting, the man who hosts, of course, the Schwarting Report and who analyzes every game meticulously, rewatches the games. I think he rewatched yesterday's game as well. Sinan, let's not talk about where you did, because that might be a problem if we
we don't want to get struck down.
But the professor of the podcast, Sinan Schwarting, how are you feeling after yesterday's game?
Great.
Do you agree with Kartal in saying that this is really kind of what we needed after 2 very difficult games against Shakhtar Donetsk early in the season, probably too early for us? Do you think this is... Let me pose a different question. If we would have had less of how should I put it? If we would have had a better coefficient and we would have played the first round in the Europa League against a somewhat more realistic opponent, Do you think that we would be in a better place right now in terms of morale and all that kind of stuff? If we would have played a team like St. Patrick's, maybe, with all the respect, of course, for St. Patrick's, but Shakhtar Donetsk for us was, I think, given the timing of the match, just too early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be 100% honest. In fact, I think that if you kind of reverse things, and if St. Patrick's was round 1, and then we were to see Shakhtar in the next round, especially given that Kevin is very likely on his way to, was it Fulham now or something like that?
But would he be?
So if he could have been gone.
But would he be if he?
Right. Well, yeah,
not
that's
for
a
that
good
game,
point.
Those two games against us, he scored. I think he scored 2 really big bangers in the top, in the top corner.
Yeah, he scored 3 goals against us all in.
That
2 in the first game,
and two of those goals.
The
were
goal in
really
the second
good
one though
ones.
was a stunner, man. That goal in the second one was he
one of those
worked his
ones
way
where
into the box and yeah, I mean, yeah,
it's one of those ones where you think, how did they get that shot off? Because it is, as you perfectly demonstrated with your arm there, seeing it. Literally, he had the defenders. Our player was right in the space. I can't remember who was exactly, but he bent it right around him and
Bend it like Beckham.
It was a brilliant goal.
yeah, exactly.
Did you ever see?
They'll be saying bend it like Kevin.
Bend it like Kevin,
That's
exactly.
right.
But yeah, I mean, you have to wonder.
Kick it like Kevin.
Would he be on
No,
Fulham's radar?
yeah.
Would he be on other big clubs' radar right now if it wasn't for those 2 goals? Well, 3 goals, but 2 of those goals were really good goals, of course.
And not only that, but if it hadn't been against a side like ours, which garners perhaps a little more attention, right? Gets probably a few more eyes on it. No, you're right. No, yeah, that's a different. Now we're in the multiverse. There are a few trees branched off there, but anyway. Point being, I think that if we had a side like St. Patrick's to begin with, we could have probably, gotten a little bit of momentum, a little bit of confidence, right? Like that squad, you could tell, like by the end of the first half, they were fully locked in. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to jump the gun here. I'm really curious to know who you guys thought was the man of the match in this last one. Where all right, I'll pump the brakes. I know we got to do lineups and stats, and probably going to save that for later. But I am very curious to know who you guys are going to select because I
think it's a hard one.
It not only did 6 guys have genuinely good games, like in the green in my system, but yeah, I mean, there were even after I rewatched, as Khan alluded to, I noticed that there were some guys who I didn't even really notice during the game who were playing so well on the fringes of it. I mean, I'll just start out with the one who shocked me the most on rewatch, and it was actually Orkun.
Yeah.
I thought he'd had something of a quiet match.
Oh yeah, okay.
On my first watch through, but on the second one, I didn't realize how much of an engine he was throughout this thing, and how many balls he was. Anyway, yeah, I'm jumping the gun. Let's do our lineup.
No.
Good
just
idea.
Just keep going. I'm just doing this in the background. The viewers don't see this yet, but I actually, because I was so busy with the cameras and stuff like that, I actually forgot to do all this kind of stuff. So I'm just gonna fix this in the background while you keep talking. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, but it's it definitely shocked me the extent to which Orkun was dominating the midfield in a way that I didn't really recognize. And it's one of those things because positionally, I think he might prefer playing in a more attacking role, right? More forward in the pitch. In a I don't think he was necessarily playing in the 6th role because he and Demir Ege were splitting that in ways, but man, he was bossing, and his fucking long balls were just a thing of art, and I didn't notice it during the match. I mean, you saw 1 or 2, but then on the rewatch where I could pause and rewind, and I'd be like, who made that pass?
Yeah.
And almost every single time it was him. And I mean, some of these balls were crazy. You don't, some of the ones that our guys weren't even getting onto the other end of, but should have. It was wild. So that was one that shocked me. Another guy who had a fantastic match, who I didn't recognize the first go around, was Gabriel Paulista, and I think it's so easy to overlook a defender, when you're watching live.
Yeah, for sure.
On rewatch, man, he was also, he's become such a phenomenal passer out of the back. It's fun to watch. But sorry, I'm hogging the limelight. Kartal, what do you have to say?
I think it's a fair point, though. I mean, he had that as well earlier last season, if you remember, like against Lugano, when we were away at Lugano, the goal from Jetson was also a fantastic cross pass from Paulista. And I think the difference maybe now, I don't know if you guys will agree, but maybe he's getting back into like full match fitness for the first time, because I think last season when he was playing in the second half of the season, he probably was playing a lot of those games injured,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like on the recovery end, right? Yeah.
Paulista, he created Tammy's second goal. It was his pass that found Mario, and then Mario beautifully flicked it on to Tammy. So there was something that started that. But the only part of the game maybe that had me a bit concerned about Paulista was
one goal.
Yeah, because Tyfler was obviously it pushed further up, and then when that long ball came into their left winger, Paulista was left 1-on-1 with the left winger.
Was he really left 1-on-1 though? I mean, I feel like he was on the back foot from the beginning because he was like chasing him, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It was a quick counter on their part. I think mostly you have it on Typhoon, right? Because he was out of position and he needed to be right. He wasn't doing anything to sort of push back on this counter. And then Paulista was trying to catch up, but he was a little slow, I think, in Kartal's defense. I will also say that I thought Mert, his positioning was terrible. It was a 1-on-1, so I don't know what he was like positioned like just in case he crosses it type shit, and it was like, yo, get up in this guy's face.
Yeah.
Like,
he allowed it in on this near corner. That's always on the goalkeeper. I would say, like, you can't allow the ball in from that angle. That's definitely on the goalkeeper.
Yeah,
definitely.
But so I gave Typhoon 2 negative marks, and I gave Gabriel Paulista and Mert 1 each. But yeah, I mean, that was really like the one lull. And I one of the things that struck me on rewatch was that, during the match, you're so like, as soon as they strike that one goal, you're kind of on the back foot. You're on yourself, like mentally. You're like, holy shit, are we letting this go? Yeah. And you kind of start seeing more of the errors. But on rewatch, we were actually quite calm, despite letting them score that goal. We kind of got control of the match for the most part. Obviously, there were those 2 chances where Mert came up pretty big. I mean, one was really big, especially. He had like a giant one-on-one save.
That one from point blank range, man. That we were very lucky, to be honest, that we didn't concede there.
Yeah, for sure.
Very, very lucky.
Yeah, I think.
But we could have also struck a couple times too. Which I didn't recognize at the time because I was so oh my god, we're gonna let them score. But like we actually were kind of calmly getting forward, kind of almost in a weird way, taking advantage of the fact that they'd opened up a little bit in the back because they were had a little bit more energy and thought they might be getting back into this thing. So. Yeah, I mean, all in all, I actually thought this was a fantastic match. Even though, like, we probably could have won by 2 or 3 more goals, but it was like our last preseason match of the season in a way, right? Like it seemed like we finally found our footing a little bit, which you like to see.
I mean, obviously you have to question the level of opponent a little bit. I think that definitely plays a big part. But before, sorry to interrupt you there, Kartal, but like one thing I did want to take, You mentioned that when they scored, it was kind of like panic mode, but like for the most part, maybe even on our part, we have these traumas in recent history with Alanyaspor 3-3. We have a couple of more that I can't name from the top of my head. Adana Demir. So we have a couple of those in our zeitgeist as fans. So I think for fans, it's really easy to get like nervous. Because we've kind of been that team. Exactly. We've kind of been that team in recent years who 3-0 isn't always as safe as you would think it would be. But the team itself, obviously there are still players left from that period, but I think more and more that's slowly starting to seep out, which is a positive thing, of course. And I do have to say, I think for like about 10 minutes after their goal, there was some, no, I wouldn't call it panic, but there was definitely some of that a little bit. And then we restored balance and we took control again. Yeah,
we lost control of the game, certainly, I'd say, for the first 15, 20 minutes maybe of that second half. But then, as you said, we restored the balance to the game, and then we started looking better again. Obviously, we didn't hit the levels we did in that first half, but we started to look at more dangerous, especially through Kenny. Kenny was good when he came on, beat his man. But I will say, I think Mucci was phenomenal. I'd say Mucci was even better than Kenny.
Here's a question. I'll put this question to you guys.
Yeah.
If this wasn't Mucci's best match in a Beşiktaş jersey, I think we can all certainly agree this was definitely his best match as a winger in a Beşiktaş jersey. Would you guys go for that?
He was very good against Bilbao as well. I'd say probably this game was better, but then you have to take into account the difference in level of opposition.
I think it was definitely good, but I think if you look at the two ways that both players played, if you see first half Mucci, the way he played, and yeah, he played more as a winger, and I think he was starting from the right side this time around, wasn't he, instead of the left?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And he was definitely good, but I think a lot of his actions were more centrally, whereas if you look...
Yeah, he was cutting in.
Yeah, he was cutting in, he was making central runs, he was more in the central zone of the pitch. He wasn't really on the line. And then if you look at the second half, if you look at how Kenny played, you can see that's a real winger. He sticks to the line, he utilizes the space there. You can tell he's just a natural winger, whereas with Mucci, despite the fact that I think he played a phenomenal game, and I've been very critical of Mucci, but I can recognize yesterday he played a great game, and it's good. Hopefully games like yesterday can help us put him in the shopping window, because I still, regardless of how he played yesterday or how he's going to play on Thursday, if he is going to play, because he had to come off injured, of course, and regardless of how he plays throughout the season, even if he plays like yesterday, if that's going to be like the standard, obviously that's great, and then he's going to be useful for us this season. I highly doubt that it's going to be the standard, however, but let's say it is. I think then you still are looking at a player that you want to sell in the long run.
Yeah.
Maybe not short term.
And he would up his value too, right?
Yeah.
If he played
exactly.
Maybe
talking about getting a wee bit of profit on that 10 million.
Yeah, exactly. If he plays like yesterday, if that becomes more consistent, I think you're looking at maybe like a 15 million euro player instead of looking at what in the past couple of months. I think we've seen a 3, 4, 5 million euro player at most. And we paid 10 for him, so we want to see a 10 million euro player at the very least. I think yesterday we kind of saw that, but it needs to come out more, and it needs to come out more consistently. And of course, the winger position isn't necessarily 100% his favorite position or natural, although he did play a lot there, I think, as well at his previous club, more on the left though. But yeah, yesterday was definitely a great game. But in my opinion, if you see what Kenny brought in the second half, and of course, again, we need to talk within the relativity of the opponent we faced, but I think that is something we have sorely lacked. And I think if it weren't for the fact that we scored 4 goals in the first half and that we kind of took the foot off the gas pedal a little bit, and we were, I think, happy with the result, and mainly, I think, we're trying to conserve energy and we're trying not to get injured. I think that was the main part of why the second half was a little bit of a dud. But Kenny, of course, came in. He was hungry. I thought he was a little bit too selfish early on, like the first 10-15 minutes he played. I thought he was a little bit too selfish, going for glory.
I agree.
For going for glory.
But he self-corrected, right?
Yes, he did.
The good thing is
exactly.
Self-corrected.
And also one of the positives is that defensively, I thought he helped out quite well as well.
I'm sure he rushed back in at one point and made a tackle.
Yeah, he did.
He did. He actually was a great one. He earned a foul. He beat a guy to a ball that Tyfor actually defended well, but he earned a foul, and it was well defended. Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, so I think yesterday was a very positive performance for Kenny, at least in our eyes, but I feel like we've seen those performances from Kenny in the past, and Ole has not really been rewarding it with consistent playing time. So I really hope that, let's say Mucci's injured.
I'm hopeful.
I'm
hopeful for Thursday.
And I think on Thursday, with the result in the bag, I think he should start. Right? He should start.
Definitely can. And
please Ole, please Ole.
As much as we've all on this podcast we've said that the people that want Ole out are being ridiculous, and we need to give him a good squad first before we can probably decide if he's the right man for the job or not. And I think he should get this full season regardless. I've said that since the start. He should be given the full year and a half on his contract to and then see where we are at the end of that period. But the one thing that I've been highly critical of him about is the lack of playing time for Kenny. I mean, who knows, maybe he's a terrible trainer and that's why. If he's very lazy in training, you can maybe argue that's fair enough. But it's clear this boy has talent and we need to nurture this talent to be able to get the most out of him and get him to be the level of player that he has that potential to be, because obviously he isn't the finished article yet. He's a bit selfish at times, like Can, as you said, maybe a bit too excited, but these are things that are going to be polished off and are going to smooth out with time. And for that to happen, the boy needs to play. So the only really issue I've been highly critical of Ollie on, despite my support for him overall, has been the lack of playing time for Kenny. So from here on out, if Mucci has an injury, hopefully he doesn't have thoughts of playing Rashika in the next game. Hopefully it's Kenny Arroyo that gets the nod over Mucci. I think it's just going to be far more beneficial to the team overall, because Rashika is not the profile we need, man, on that right wing. We saw that a lot last season. After a good start he had,
I forgot about him.
He's not up to the task. I've always thought that if Rashika is going to have a role in this team, it'd be coming in from the left, almost being a left wing forward. He shouldn't be on that right wing. He shouldn't be on that right wing. I don't think that's something that should be even considered, and that is probably the point I've criticised Ollie on the most. But hopefully this game was proof, and he saw that Kenny's the better man for the job. Although we have thought that a few times. We thought that against Alanyaspor last year, at the end of last year, when Semi had that controversial goal disallowed. It was controversially disallowed, I should say, because many of us thought it was a fair goal. We thought that at that point he'd proven that he was better than Rashika, a better option than Rashika. Obviously, Ollie didn't deem that to be the case. From what we saw after that, I mean, he did start him against Rizespor, but then he yanked him at half time. Rashika was the first choice in the first leg. No, but we want to see Kenny, and hopefully Ollie's realised that now. And if he starts playing Kenny, then that's him kind of solved the one criticism I've had of him, because in every other aspect, maybe apart from a couple of defensive changes late in games like the Göztepe game, bringing on Tayyip Talas in that game, I thought that was an uncle. Overall, I've liked the fact that he's flexible and does try and change things if results aren't going his way, and I think that's something we've not really seen at the club. We've not seen coaches that have been flexible in their approach, and Ollie certainly has been that.
Yeah, and thank you, by the way, to Nathan Davies for the shout out there. You're very welcome, Nathan. I'm happy to do it. I know it's a massive hassle for people to be able to watch the games, especially these qualifiers are a big pain in the butt. So I was happy to be able to be of service there. I completely agree with what you're saying there, Kartal. I don't know what about you, Sinan. How do you see Kenny's role yesterday? Because of course you're taking pen to paper, you're putting marks there. How many positive, how many negative? A little bit of cheating here with the Sporting report, but maybe you can give us.
Want a spoiler?
Yeah, maybe you can give us some insights on what you thought of his performance yesterday. I'm very curious.
I thought he was really solid. I thought he was very solid, actually. If anything, the weaknesses in his game, I thought, were evidence that he needs to play more, right? Like they showed a kind of lack of experience and a lack of know-how, which you can only really get from playing, right? Like the finishing, the decision to finish or to lay it off, or how to lay it off.
I've noticed this in the past as well. Like if you guys remember when Jermaine Lens came into the club, and he was like a 29-year-old player at the time, and Senol Güneş wasn't really playing him much in the beginning, and then when he did finally get a chance, you saw that there was like an over-eagerness to score. And if you know Jermaine Lens a little bit throughout his career, like he's a player who scored a decent amount of goals, but also gave a lot of assists. And if you saw him at Fenerbahce, there were a lot of moments where he'd get in certain positions where he'd then lay it off and for the easy tap-in goal. But then I think it was against Trabzonspor. I think he scored, but then you just felt that he wanted to score another goal or maybe even 2 more goals instead of laying it off.
Yeah.
I think we ended up drawing that game 3-3, the one where Rodaye got scored. And
Yeah,
we had,
I think-
yeah,
I might
go
be
ahead.
wrong, but was there not a position this game where if he passed the ball, there would have been a
Yes.
really easy chance for Negredo or
Yes.
something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been a tap-in goal, and normally you would have
Yeah.
expected him to lay that off because that's what he would do in most scenarios in a situation like that. And I kind of got the same feeling with Kenny yesterday, where especially the first 10-15 minutes, it was definitely.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's necessarily a lack of experience. I think it's more wanting to show yourself, wanting to prove yourself to the coach, and
Yeah.
and I think it's more that. So it is due to a lack of playing time. So you're right in that, but I don't think it's necessarily a lack of experience. It's more a lack of feeling that the
Comfort.
Yeah,
I suppose.
comfort,
Yeah,
and feeling the
Yeah.
confidence from the coach. So I think what he was trying to do there was just making himself noticeable straight away, but in an ironic way, really. If he, instead of going for glory himself, and of course, if he scores the goal, everyone's heaping praise on him.
Yeah.
But if he would lay it off, I think in the coach's eye, for the very least, but also in a lot of fans' eyes, I think if he, instead of going for glory himself, but he presents, for example, Rafa or Tammy or whatever with an easy tapping goal, I think would get just as much credit.
Yeah, I mean, Sammy had
If not more.
the same issue as well 2 years ago. Remember in one of the qualifiers we played, he didn't lay off to Rebic. Yeah, he got a lot of criticism then. When we played the second game against Lugano, the one we won 2-1. If he laid it off to Ox,
He had a run of it, right?
yeah, and then he was
Didn't
getting a
he
lot of
piss off
criticism.
Cenk
but then
at one point?
that kind of disappeared from his game after he scored his first goal.
Yeah.
I think he was against like
He just
the
needed to
Kayserispor,
find his
man.
confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of that.
No,
is-
I guess that's what I meant. Yeah. I don't necessarily mean experience. I guess in part it's experience because it's like you're saying, if he lays it off, right? If he has that knowledge that like you're actually gonna get even more plaudits, just do the right. But you're right though. You're right. A huge part of that, because I think deep down he knows football. Like you can tell he intuitively he's a talent. So I mean, I'm excited for his prospects, and I really genuinely feel like what he lacks is exactly what you're saying, like that sense of stability, the idea that he has a bit of leeway to maybe make a mistake. Like I think there's so much pressure on him, like you say, to grab that goal, to get the headline. I mean, especially remember preseason, he gave an interview kind of like before many of our transfers had come in, which probably in his mind was like, ooh, I'm gonna become this more prominent player on the team. I think in his mind that he had the 10, you know what I mean? I think he wants to make this thing work, and there's probably a lot of pressure that he's put on himself to make it work. And so that's what I think you saw when he took that shot when he should have passed. And I think there were even a couple opportunities where he could have passed. He didn't even necessarily take a shot, but he tried to take a man on, and it was like, okay, buddy, just Pat, there's a guy right there, Orkun's making a run. So it's those little things, but it does come from not having the pressure to do something crazy. But with that said, as he did settle in, and by the end of the game, he was really laying balls up. I mean, he put Kartal in with a great chance that Kartal missed. To be fair, I mean, it was a decent effort on his part.
He was looking for the shot, he was looking for the opening there, but he realized on time, okay, there's 3 players in front of me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to squeeze my shot through. There's a better chance if I lay it off. And then he laid it off towards Kartal, but I think he put it a little bit behind him where Kartal had to take a step back and then fire a shot. So it wasn't
What about the Rafa and him?
Kenny
breakaway.
fucked that. Let's be honest. The touch was
he did.
If that touch,
was he trying to pass it?
I don't know. I think he was trying to go around the goalkeeper. Honestly, I think, and then Rafa was there, and I think he held off.
Yeah.
But I think he was trying to go past the goalkeeper, and if he, instead of going into that position with the idea of going past the goalkeeper, goes into that position with the idea of I'm gonna just tap it,
lay it out
perfectly for Rafa, because if he hits that a little less hard, Rafa can easily take it around the keeper and score. But yeah, that is he's 19 years old. And I don't know if
Exactly.
I see a lot of similarities if I compare like his performance yesterday to, for example, Santana. Like there's a lot of similarities there. I feel like when we were watching Santana, especially in the first game, like sticking to the line, dummying his opponent, being able to go both ways. He can go inside, he can go outside. He can go outside for the cross, or he can go inside for the shot. And something Santana also has in his repertoire, which we of course we saw. And I'm not gonna talk about Santana like I know him really, really well. Obviously, Kenny is our player, but like I feel like that is something that I've spoken about this ad nauseum. But that is something Milot Rashica really, really lacks. He doesn't have that ability to consistently go either way. That's one of the biggest issues for him. I think with Rashica, he needs to run onto a ball, and then he needs to have a proper head start to begin with because he's not super fast. But going around a player, whether it's cutting in or it's going the other direction to put in a cross, he isn't very good at it. And you can see that Kenny. I don't know if Kenny is like insanely fast, but he has explosive quickness in the first meters, which he uses very well to create separation between himself and the direct opponent. And really, we've been talking about wingers this entire window. We all want wingers.
Yeah,
and the problem,
we've been talking about wingers for like 2 years, man.
yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I find a little bit sad is that I think with Kenny, we do have a winger. Like, we have a proper winger there. And we need to give him more playing time. We need to utilize him more, especially given our situation. That is like like you, Kata, my single biggest criticism of Ole is the lack of playing time for Kenny. And I understand maybe...
Mine too.
Yeah, maybe he is not a great trainer. Maybe there's something there and he needs to learn. I understand all that. But it's not like we have a lot of... We don't have any... In my opinion, he is our best option on the wing. Like, out-and-out winger, I don't see anyone better in this squad. I think João Mário yesterday played a great game.
Yeah, he played good.
But he doesn't...
Fantastic.
But he's a center player. He's not a wing player.
Yeah.
And the same thing can be...
He's an inverted player. He starts off in the wing, but he comes in centrally. He doesn't give you width.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that killed us against Shakhtar was the fact that they had two wingers that stuck against the line, that stretched us out completely, which created a lot of spaces in between the lines, which got them the chance to keep passing the ball around, despite the fact that I think, Shakhtar looked really, really good against us. But in reality, I think they had four really good players that really, really hurt us. The two fullbacks and the two wingers. I didn't think that necessarily their central defenders and their central midfielders and even their striker, I don't think that the middle of their team was particularly strong. I think our middle of the park was stronger than theirs, but they just they kept the fight on the wing the entire time. Essentially, they kept the matches on the wing, and that's where we are the weakest. It's so and if you as an opponent have that quality where you have two really good confident fullbacks and you have two really good wingers and you can stretch us, I think we have a very, very tough time against teams like that. Fortunately, we haven't really met a lot of teams like that yet, because even if you take, for example, Athletic Bilbao last season, they obviously have fantastic wingers, but their fullbacks aren't necessarily, the best. I thought Tobias and Pedro Henrique were fantastic fullbacks. And that really hurt us as well in that game. And I don't think they got the attention in the media necessarily. Everyone was talking about Kevin, everyone was talking about Santana, but Pedro Henrique in that first game was sensational. And then when Tobias came in the second half, he was sensational. And then in the return, I thought Tobias was really, really good, and Pedro Henrique was really good as well. And I think that's what gave them the edge and allowed them to exploit us.
I wasn't on the podcast for obviously the last 2 weeks to talk about the Shakhtar games. But if you're in the WhatsApp community, you'll have seen my comment that I don't think that Shakhtar is a great football team. I think they have, as Khan said, like maybe 4 very good players, excellent players, but that team had a lot of mistakes in them. And I feel like had we rounded off our squad, and because they started their preparations a couple of weeks before us as well, they were a lot more ready than we were. Whereas,
Yeah, they played 2 official games already going into this match.
We weren't ready. I don't think, like, physically, this often happens. See, if you've had like an intense summer camp, it's going to take you a wee while to find your feet. And often at the start, you can see the team looks a bit sluggish and tired because they've been training so hard. But then you have the fruits of that labour later on during the season. I honestly think, see if we met Shakhtar in the playoffs afterwards, if we'd signed like 2 really good wingers and a right back as well, and obviously we've got Ndidi coming in just now. I think, I'm not saying we'd definitely beat them, but I think we'd stand a good chance because I think a sharp Beşiktaş that's got at least a couple of good wingers. I think Shakhtar's a very beatable team because they made a lot of mistakes in the build-up. They made a lot of mistakes. I remember even in the first game near the start, they had a throw-in and they just threw it straight to us. Like they aren't a very polished team. Like they have a lot of mistakes in them, but they do have like 4 exceptional players, as you said, and obviously the wingers, especially, they were the main ones that stood out. And for me, especially Kevin, I think Kevin was. I'm not surprised that a week after we're hearing that there's £40 million not pounds, but €40 million offers made for him because he was a phenomenal player and one of the best wingers we've seen play against us in a while.
Santana too.
Kartal, stay there on the big screen. Kartal, do you agree with me that if we'd faced Shakhtar in the round after St. Patrick, so after we gained this momentum and confidence, and Shakhtar didn't have Kevin, that we could beat them even in this reality?
Maybe.
Even on this
not sure. Possibly seen in without Kevin, because Kevin, I think, is their best player. So I think there's a possibility, but I think keep Kevin in their team. You add in 2 good wingers.
They still got us. Yeah.
I honestly thought Santana was better.
Our team. I think if we faced them in the playoffs at the end of August, I think we would have had a really good chance because that team is sloppy. They have mistakes in them, and a lot of mistakes in them in the build-up. And we saw it then, but it just seemed like we were too sluggish to capitalise on it. I don't know if you guys felt that same way, especially in the first game, but we saw it in the second game as well. That was just some of my thoughts about the Shakhtar game. I thought I'd add that in because I wasn't here.
Also keep in mind, Orkun was playing at 60-70%. Tammy was playing at 60-70%. Tammy, this was the first time he played a full 90 yesterday.
Yeah,
you know?
and I still, the scary thing about Orkun, I think he's still not got full fitness. I think in the second half he tired. I think see when Orkun, who's just back from an injury as well, see when he hits full fitness, he's going to be scary because, as Sinan said, he noticed it in his second watch, man. Like, he was the conductor of that team, our team yesterday. He was phenomenal. His vision, his passing, brilliant. He was the commander in chief.
Did you guys see?
He was the leader on the park.
Did you guys see? I think he had close to 100 passes. Yeah, I think he had 90 passes complete out of 93, and he had a 97% completion rate. And the thing is, of course, we've seen numbers like that in the past. With Atiba a lot, but with Atiba, you don't get the same amount of forward passes. Now, I don't think Orkun had an insane amount of forward passes, an insane amount of key passes. I think he only had technically 2 key passes in this game. I think he had 3 against Shakhtar. But I don't know exactly what they count as key passes, because like you said, I think Sinan said, like, he had some phenomenal long balls yesterday. And he was pulling the strings, and he was playing really, really well. And it's not just that, like, I talked about this in one of our WhatsApp groups recently as well, Kartal, where I got the impression that a lot of the online analysts, the Turkish online analysts, have a really distorted image of Orkun, I kind of think. Because I get the impression that everyone's like, Orkun is an amazing, is good attacking midfielder, but he doesn't really work hard, or he can't work, or he can't defend. But the people who watched him at Feyenoord will know that he is a very intense presser, he is a very hard worker, and he helps out defensively a lot. Obviously not to the extent as a Jetson, for example.
Yeah.
But I think you can compare him to Sosa, where Sosa was also very energetic, also helping out on the wings a lot. He isn't like Sosa in the sense that Sosa liked to go to the wing. He liked to drift to the right a lot, and I think he got a lot of his assists that way. But I think in terms of work rate and that kind of stuff, you can compare Orkun to him. So when I've been seeing like in recent days, people talking about...
I mean, I would say he was even a slightly harder worker than Sosa, as far
Sosa
as
was
his work in the back of the midfield.
Sosa was very, very good in the press. Very, very
He was
good.
good, but it wasn't like, I wouldn't say that was like his strength to the extent where, like yesterday, Orkun was
there's
like bossing shit,
10 years in between it, of course. You know, you need to keep that in mind. Like, you know, your memory of Sosa is probably not as
true.
crisp anymore.
No.
You know?
I know, but I saw him more as he definitely he had that sort of deep line quality when he wanted it, for sure. But I just mean, I didn't, like, for example, like I don't want to say I fully bought into the media narrative that like Orkun was an attacking midfielder, but I was at least like, you look at his stats and like he has those double doubles recently, you know, of assists and goals. So I was anticipating someone who was going to be, you know, almost clashing with Rafa in the midfield. And then you watch yesterday, and like perhaps it's because he's cognizant of Rafa and what he can do, but like they complemented each other so well. Rafa also, by the way, we should probably mention, had a quietly fantastic match. I don't like, people will like, because he didn't have any flashy goals or any of those crazy runs.
And you're seeing
but
that
if
anything, there's criticism mounting on Rafa already. There's people, I don't know, I think you linked it yesterday, Katla, but there's like people who are like starting to hate on him already. He hasn't scored in 3
it's fucking
matches.
ridiculous, man.
It's ridiculous.
I think people just
yesterday he proved that he can function so well. He proved he can function so well next to Orkun, and that he doesn't need to necessarily be playing in that desperation, like, we need you to make a run and that's the only way. Like, if anything, he proved the exact opposite yesterday. He can be a fulcrum in a properly functioning midfield and distribute the ball well and kind of lead the rest of the guys and position them where they need to go. And I mean, he was really operating. I mean, it was beautiful to see Orkun and him bossing 2 separate sections of the midfield and basically creating these lines where Orkun's like commanding guys on the sides and the flanks defensively to come up and to press or to go back, and then you see Rafa doing the same thing with the wings, and like Tammy obviously knows what he's doing. He doesn't need much instruction, but I mean, it was like, I don't know, man, you saw a really properly functioning team. Like that's what yesterday made me feel good.
We'll tell you what you need to look at. Who played behind Rafa Silva in Rafa Silva's best ever season in his career? Orkun.
Orkun,
But I think also what you need to keep...
Another midfielder, I can't remember whose name I can't remember, and a double pivot behind Rafa in Rafa's best career season. And Orkun, Orkun wasn't publicly said that he wasn't happy about playing that double pivot, but he still had great numbers. So there's no doubt in my mind at all that those two can perform well together.
The thing is, I think early in the season, like the first half of the season or something, Schmidt was playing him more in like a 6 role. And when after his falling out with Schmidt, he kind of moved him more into a more advanced role, I think, which is probably what he's going to end up playing for us. But I do think, you guys, we have to temper optimism for a bit here.
Sure.
Because
it's St. Patrick's.
That is an incredibly important detail, is that this is against St. Patrick's, and hopefully... I am really hopeful that against the weaker teams in the Super League, Orkun and Rafa can be this effective. Obviously, I don't think Rafa was necessarily that effective yesterday. He did have a decent game, but and he got a good assist. But you know, we're used to seeing Rafa more involved.
Yeah,
also,
it wasn't like he didn't play like Orkun or Muche did.
Yeah,
Orkun, Muche, Kenny.
A quiet standout.
Even João Mário, man. Yeah. Obviously, Tammy was fucking brilliant. I'd say those guys.
I actually have all of those guys. Now that you mention it, Cartel, those are the guys I had above Rafa, with the exception of Kenny, just because Kenny didn't have enough of a impact. You know, the way I do it, I tally it up like it's cumulative. So just because he had such a small window to perform in, but I think certainly if Kenny had played like the full 90 minutes, he probably would have. He might have eclipsed Rafa. I really think Rafa was also a surprise for me on my rewatch, to the extent to which he was pulling the strings on counters and helping kind of relieve the defense, like when he would make those little runs. What was nice is that you didn't need to see him make those crazy runs all the way up. Like, he actually had outlets at times yesterday. So, I mean, and maybe that's just because Mucci was actually playing well for a change, and obviously João Mário. I mean, I don't know. I was saying this yesterday, but like I think I was kind of ironically a João Mário fan for a while, and in part because he was so much the center of criticism. And it's not like he was he was an amazing player, but it was more like, okay, I mean, he doesn't deserve all this hate, and he's playing well enough. You know, people are being hard on him, so I'll ironically be his fan or whatever. But in like towards the end of last season, and then now through the preseason and even into our early on competitive matches, he's been the steadiest performer on the team, weirdly enough.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's gotten to the point. Like yesterday, he was coming in centrally to sort of give passing outlets to like Emirhan and Gabriel Paulista, and I mean, he was everywhere. He was omnipresent. Like it was, it was great.
And let's
great
not
to
forget
see, man.
against,
like some of these
Shakhtar,
pieces come into play.
He's the guy who gave us a lifeline in the first game with his impact.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
his goal, but also just the way he played. But back to the point I was trying to make is I think really yesterday, because of the level of the opponent we were playing against, obviously. You're going to be punished a lot less. Your midfield isn't going to get tested as much. You know, if you're up against Fred and Szymanski and Amrabat, you know, or something like that. Obviously, Rafa and Orkun and whoever the third man in the midfield are going to have a far more tough fight on their hands, and then it could become an issue where maybe our midfield isn't. Because I often find that with Rafa in midfield, you're playing with two midfielders. Orkun, or last season it was Jetson and Amir, or Jetson and Ox, or Jetson and Al Musrati or whatever. So I think what you often get is you get 2 versus 3 situations because Rafa is so far up or he's drifting out to the wings or whatever. He's not very actively taking part in the midfield battle. And that often leaves you in a 2 versus 3 situation. So I do think that against stronger opponents, it could become an issue. But I also think that one of our biggest issues last season and previous seasons has been being able to unlock low blocks. And in that regard, I think this midfield is
Orkun's going to work wonders.
Orkun and Rafa.
Orkun's the X factor we've been missing.
But Carter, what Khan's alluding to is though, like as far as transitions go, right? Having Rafa as that guy who can sort of create a line above Orkun. So if Orkun can get possession somehow, he can basically, given we know Rafa has that ability to run onto the ball and use his pace in short distances, he can just kind of loft it up over whatever is in between him and Rafa in the midfield, and we'll immediately be able to spring a counter. I think, against a better opposition.
It could be.
Granted, if that requires tactical discipline, and hopefully that's being instilled.
It's got some drawbacks, as Khan saying in the harder games you can be outnumbered in the midfield because Rafa is essentially a second striker. But at this, because I've been thinking about just like how the changes in the shape and stuff like that, and how we'd play in possession. I think. After a lot of thinking about it, I think that we need to, if we're going to play 4-2-3-1, I think we need to keep the asymmetric system, I think it's called, where one of the full backs goes forward and then the other one stays back and forms a back three. I think, see the right back that we sign, I think it should be, for example, someone like maybe Nordi Mukulele, who can form a back three.
Sorry? Like
Nordi Mukulele, the PSG right back.
Oh, okay,
played for Leipzig as well. I think it should be someone like him because when needed, he can plays a wing back and he can also play as a right centre back. He's a good passer, good defender as well, physical. I think that's the type of guy we should go for because see if we're playing 4-2-3-1, you need that right back to kind of in possession to form that back three because see if it's your CDM, for example, Ndidi, who was signed. I know that's maybe we'll talk about that later on. If he's going back to form a back three, and then that way Orkun's going to be isolated because Rafa's going to be way ahead in possession because Rafa obviously likes to drift beside the striker. So I think if we're playing 4-2-3-1, I think we need to keep the asymmetric setup we've been using since last year, where just like Svensson does just now, but I think we need to upgrade that. We need a right back that can form a back three. I don't know what you guys think about that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But I think I've been talking about that for a while already. Where I personally am more of a fan of that of that sort of a system, especially when you have somebody like David Jurasek, who is an extremely offensive left wing back. Essentially, I think it is very important. And I was questioning the choice of Osai Samuel because of that, because it didn't make much sense to me. Unless you're going to play 3 at the back and you play like a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3 or something.
Yeah. Or you put Rafa on the wing.
It didn't make sense to me. Even with Rafa on the wing, if you play with 2 offensive wing backs, you're going to run into defensive issues, especially given the fact that Gabriel Paulista isn't the fastest anymore, or ever was maybe. And you know, I think that's an issue. So I do agree with you when you say that the profile of the right back that we attract should be somebody who is who is first and foremost a good defender, a good passer, because he needs to be able to start the build up, but he also needs to be able to join the attack, and he also needs to be able to play as a third central defender. So in that regard, I think Kyle Walker-Peters was an interesting profile, even though he was not necessarily known to be a great defender, but he had played on both wings, you know, left wing, right wing, but he had also played as a center back. And as a center back, exactly. And you know what? I know Emerson Royal was something that a lot of people hated on, and I personally, you know, I'm of the opinion, I think if everyone unanimously agrees, like Tottenham fans, AC Milan fans, all unanimously agree, oh, sorry, this guy is shite, he probably is shite. But I do think his profile was the right profile. He's somebody that was able to play as a center defender. He's somebody that is known for his physical prowess, his ability to win duels. And defensively, you know, some people said that he was defensively strong, at least. Other people said he was defensively useless, just as useless as he was offensively. But obviously, you know, I think you should never get a player like that, because a player like that where everyone says he's shit, he's probably shit, you know? Like, and at the end of the day, and I said this then as well, like, I think if you can't cross the ball in the Premier League and you can't cross the ball in Serie A, you're not magically going to be able to start crossing the ball in the Super League. You know, the ball is still going to fly the same direction you would if you kicked it in those leagues. Obviously, you get maybe a fraction of a second more time. And that is one of the biggest differences in the levels, because people sometimes they argue like, oh, you know, maybe this player, okay, he couldn't quite cut it in the Premier League, but he might be able to cut it in the Super League. And those sort of things can be true in certain situations. If one of the things that the player is struggling with is time on the ball, or rather, decision making, stuff like that. Like in the Super League, they're gonna get a little bit more time. In the Premier League, the tempo is higher. In Serie A, the tempo is higher. So you're gonna get a little bit more time. But if you can't kick the ball, if you can't pass the ball, like that's not magically going to resolve itself because you get a little bit more time. You know. Yeah. But like I said, I think Emerson Royal was, profile-wise, made sense, and I think that is something we should be going for, like you said, because I think otherwise we'll run into issues given if we play 4-2-3-1, because we're going to have, especially once we finally, let's cross our fingers, finally get good wingers in. Like, let's say Jadon Sancho is one of the names being pushed. Whether that's going to happen, I'll leave that in the middle. Let's say Jadon Sancho, let's look at his profile. He isn't known exactly as a winger that loves to track back and defend. You know, obviously he played for Dortmund and he's used to playing a gegenpress game. So pressing is not an issue for him necessarily, but tracking back, defending, that's not going to be his strong suit. And also, if you get a player like that who isn't known for that, do you really want him to waste his valuable energy on doing something he's not very good at? It's like the same thing with Rafa Silva. Like, Rafa helps out defensively from time to time, but he's not super active defensively. But also, he's somebody that tries to preserve his energy for the final third offensively, to make the right decision there, to score goals, to give assists. And you don't want to put too much defensive workload on those creative players that are supposed to win you the games, I think.
Yeah, you don't want them running out of energy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think it is important that we have a right back that's able to contribute more defensively and allows David Jurasek more offensive freedom and gives him less defensive responsibilities. And hopefully, Wilfred Ndidi can contribute to that as well, because he's known to be a very good defensive number 6, which I also think is what we needed.
By the way, Jurasek had a quietly solid game yesterday. I think a lot of people would not have noticed it. And I think, he had a couple of those lapses defensively, positioning-wise, that, because people are already worried about that, they're going to be like, oh, he did it again, it was a bad game. But in fact, he was actually quite solid, intercepting the ball well, lots of good little passes, he was very useful alongside, Emirhan, by the way, was fantastic, like solidly perhaps his best match yet. But he and Jurasek was giving him outlets to sort of alleviate pressure on the defense. It was, again, that you can really say the quality of opposition. We'll have to see how that fares against better teams, but so far so good. Do you Turk? Why do you speak English? That's funny. I saw anyway. As well, yeah. Let's do the lineup.
Yeah, right? let's have a look at the lineup, because we have been going on for a while now, but let's have an in-depth look here at the lineup. I still have Ciro Immobile, by the way, there on the right. I am going to end up changing it eventually, but for the time being.
Ciro walked so Tammy could run. It's okay. All right, lineup. We won't do our opponents, because I don't think those names will mean much. And furthermore, because you're all watching with a Turkish announcer, likely you wouldn't recognize the names anyway, because he's gonna butcher them all. So there's no point even trying to know their names unless you're playing FIFA or something. Anyway, do they have the Irish League in FIFA these days? I'll leave that for the expert.
I don't think so.
Back of them. I wouldn't think so, but who knows these days. Anyway. Mert, of course, starts in goal with Gabriel Paulista and Emirhan Topçu on the back line, which is because, of course, Felix Urukai contracted some sort of a virus. Get well soon, King Felix. Back of the flanks of our defense, we had Jonas Svensson on the right again, opposite David Jurasek. And of course, in the back of our midfield was Demir Ege Tiknaz next to Orkun Kokcu, who, as we've already said, had easily his best match of his short tenure. It was only his second, but so far so good. Ernest Mucci, again, great match on the right side of our midfield, opposite João Mário, with Rafa Silva in the middle, and of course Tammy Abraham up top, who we haven't even spoken about yet, but may well have been the man of the match with a hat trick. And he's got 4 goals in his first 3 appearances for us, so hot start for Tammy. And of course, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as the technical director. Yeah. We're stuck here. Anyway, anyone want to take? Okay.
Shall we switch to the stats perhaps?
Yep.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's get through this.
Yeah.
As fast as we can, I suppose. I think we've already sort of hyper-analyzed this match to some degree. Anyway, Beşiktaş had 67% of the ball to our opponent's 33%. We had 16 shots to their 4, 8 on target to their 3, 3 big chances to their 1. They missed their 1 big chance. We did not miss any of our 3, which, you know what that means, folks. We scored at least 3 goals. Accurate passes, we had 640, another great outing in that sense, versus their only 287. We completed ours at a 92% clip versus their 88%. Pretty solid stuff from on our end for sure. Again, quality of opposition. We committed 15 fouls to their 5. And I will say, by the way, that this ref was not doing a great job early on. I felt like we were going to get screwed. But in the end, obviously, our talent made it a little too much for any ref to be able to screw up. Offsides, 0-0. Corners, we had 3 to their 2. How about them duels, Cartel?
So in terms of the duels, we won 40 to their 39, so that gave us 51% of the duels won, ground duels. 36 for us, 33 for them, so we won 52% of them. Aerial duels won, they actually had the advantage there, so they won 6 to our 4, so they had 60% of them. In terms of successful dribbles, we had 9 successful dribbles, which was at a clip of 53%. So you'd think that means it would work out about 17 attempted dribbles. So we got 9 out of 17. They had 5 successful dribbles at a 38% success rate. So that'd make you think, what, maybe they tried like 12 or 13. In terms of yellow cards, it was 1 apiece and no red cards in the game.
There it is. I didn't even realize Galatasaray is playing right now. The season is underway. Did you guys realize? Maybe I should put that on the background.
Yep. So, do you want to do just some closing comments on the game, and then we can move on to talk about our new transfer?
Yeah, let's
I probably shouldn't put it on the big.
Yeah. So I just want to say, just quickly to go over it. Phenomenal first half. We took the foot off the gas in the second half. There was maybe a 20-minute period where we didn't look so great. Other than that, it was a solid game. Like after that, we kind of balanced out the game again. Maybe didn't look great, but we still had moments of danger. But the first half was brilliant. I think you guys could probably both agree with that.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
think the first half.
So
was
I think what we
see,
should
right?
do, guys, is there's actually been a video released by the club, so I think we should all watch it on air together. And then we can talk about this new the new
Can you
arrival.
turn the sound down for us too, Con?
It's a good question.
If that's not
That's not possible because yes, I can, but then I need to make some tweaks in a bit.
Don't worry.
Well, actually, I'll play the video if you can send it in our group chat, Catal. I'll play the video in a second, but yeah.
Yeah, we have some closing remarks, Con, about the match.
I don't know. I don't know if I have any closing remarks. I just have to prepare a screen so that we can actually watch the video. So that's what I'm trying to think of right now.
I'll how about this? I'll close us out as far as the match goes. I could probably ground up some thoughts. No, I mean, look, obviously against an opponent like this, you expected to win on paper, right? And we all went in like, oh, if we don't win this, Ole's job is finished. He's done for. But then, obviously, like as the match gets built up, in your mind, you look back, right? Like Başakşehir here beat them last year. I think it was like over 2 legs. They beat them 2-0, right? Like so, I think they only scored once per match. It wasn't like a dominant affair. You look at the form we were in, all the worries we have about not having the proper personnel, wings, a 6, even fullbacks, like defensive flanks, maybe even, like with Felix down, do we have the depth in the back? Like, and the answer to all of those questions was at least against the quality of this type. The answer was yes, we could handle ourselves well, and even find a form of dominance that I think we missed as Beşiktaş fans, right? We hadn't seen in a long time. Like by the 35th minute, I think I saw Orkun, it kind of clicked in his mind, and he was like, holy shit, I am manning the back of the team I grew up being a fan of, and he just like clicked as the leader back there, and yeah, I mean, it was just fun to see. It was fun to see people getting comfortable and confident, and having a little bit of swagger back there for a change. Yeah, I don't know. All in all, I think this was everything we could have kind of hoped for from this type of a match, given what we're trying to build towards. And also given that we are still lacking a lot of things that you see what we saw yesterday, and imagine like what would happen if you had a little more quality, like on the 6. What if you had a little bit? I mean, not that Demirage had a bad performance by any stretch, but imagine how much more he offers as like an added bonus in the 60th minute off the bench, right? Like, and if you have a more solid defensive presence next to Orkun throughout the beginning of that match, imagine if you have someone on the left wing who's a real impact player and contributing. Not that, again, João Mário had a fantastic match, but imagine him coming off the bench, right? Same thing for Svensson, right? And we were talking about this yesterday, but if we can find a way to get rid of Onana, Al Musrati, Ox, There's another one I'm missing. Oh, like Elan Ricardo, but I guess he's so young that doesn't really matter. But if we can get rid of like 4 guys, and if we can keep Svensson and João Mário for depth, suddenly the weakness that is our lack of depth becomes a major strength. Right?
Yeah,
suddenly we have like great options.
Yeah.
So that would be amazing.
Completely agree with that, because I mean, I think Svensson, that to me is like this. Like yesterday, you could see when Svensson came off, that was really an issue.
It was, Typhoon is that type of fullback that likes to bomb forward.
Not just that, I also think Typhoon, because of, this is just a theory, but I think honestly because of the fact that the match was so much beyond the opponents at that point, beyond St. Patrick's, and again, with all due respect for St. Patrick's, of course, but, the match was so far beyond them, I think, at that point, that, like, I just don't think that that he took it necessarily super seriously, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the dangers with him, is that he has, I think, the tendency to maybe switch off a little bit. And
he doesn't seem like the most serious of guys, does he?
No, I don't think so. And I think that's one of the issues with Typhoon. But on the other hand, I do think that perhaps if we were in a different sort of game, in a different game scenario where concentration was required from Typhoon, I do think he has the ability to focus. I just think that in a game like yesterday, I think Typhoon was, and this is not necessarily a dig at him, but we know Typhoon, he loves making these Instagram stories and all that kind of stuff. I think he was more preoccupied with getting a little highlight reel for him to post an Instagram post. And that is not I'm not even kidding. I genuinely think that's what he was trying to do. And with the score at 4-0 and the match way beyond St. Patrick's, honestly, I don't know if I even blame him all that much for it. If that, I think it's just, it's just Typhoon. He's not the most serious player out there, I think. Anyway, so I think we talked about the match enough, but I think what is a good idea, and that gives me the time to continue to prep Sinan, maybe we should start getting to some comments already. We can see what people have to say, and then we can start getting into Ndidi.
Yeah, sure. I was just there's
Animals
all these
of the world
things being
subscribe to the
posted now
channel.
about links about who's Hakan Daltaban?
He's
Hakan
the
Daltaban,
second
apparently
president.
part of the coach holdings.
No, he's the second president.
Oh,
so he's like this.
We'll just talk about him.
He's Sardar, that's
looking at
right hand
Sancho.
man, you could say.
Apparently he's in the Sancho business. Isn't that? Do you guys know Sublime, the band from back in the day? Didn't they talk? Wasn't there a song about punching Sancho in the face?
By the way,
that was a weird tangent.
I'm gonna try and share my screen with sound for you guys in the meantime. So the
while I'm reading comments, sure.
The screen sharing is gonna be off for a little bit, just so you know. But you can start with the comments now, and then I'll try and get that sorted.
So, first we have Merit, who says hi, and I don't even think that's one of the Merits that we normally have around.
So hi, Merit.
So hello to you, sir.
Don't forget
for a hot minute he was number 1 in the XP battle.
Don't forget to subscribe.
That's right. Merit, those who made us celebrate St. Patrick's victory should be ashamed. This club deserves better. Yeah, sure, but here we are. We're here. And it was still fun. Let's allow ourselves to have some fun. Jason, hello, Yasin, how's it going, sir? Nasser says he likes the new template. That's the note for Khan. Carlito says these are Green Lantern vibes. As a Marvel guy, I would posit perhaps we should be talking about Doctor Doom instead. Given where we are and within the near future there. Nasser, my man of the match is between 2 players, Orkun and Mucci, though. Okay, now we're talking about man of the match. I'll save the man of the match stuff for when we get there. But so I'll come back to that comment now, sir. He says, I think the most... we'll leave that one for later. Nathan, I know the quality of opponent wasn't fantastic yesterday, but it made me very excited for what we'll see when Orkun is fully fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree. And I mean, he looked a lot closer to it than he did in that first match, but man, yeah, he was.
By the way, sorry to interrupt
by the
now,
way,
but
again, thanks, Nate.
you guys should be getting sounds now from the screen share. I think you should be.
All right.
You should be getting.
Awesome.
You should be getting sound. I don't know if you are you hearing the background music.
No.
No. Because I did activate.
How about you,
I did
Kurt?
activate it, so you might. I don't know. Maybe you have to do something. I'm not sure, but.
Interesting. Anyway.
Otherwise, alternatively, guys, what you could do is just open the video yourself, and I'll do a countdown, and then we all press play at the same time. That's also gonna work.
Sure.
You know?
Or like I could put in my earpiece. That's what I'll do for my phone.
Yeah, but then you're gonna
anyway,
have a delay. Then you're
10.
gonna have a delay, though.
That's true. All right. Yeah. All right. That sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Did we not
All
get
right.
it to work?
Sorry.
Did we not get the sound to work?
I did activate it, but Sinan isn't hearing it. He says so. I don't know. If
Do you hear any sound now, Cardo?
Try it now, man.
Do you hear the?
No, you would hear.
You would-
You would hear the Europa League,
Yeah.
the Conference League sound.
Yeah, you would hear the.
I don't hear anything. No, I don't hear anything,
Okay.
man. No.
Okay.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. Then it's then.
I think maybe me and Sinan will just need to put it on in the background.
You're gonna,
and
yeah,
upset.
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do
exactly.
a little countdown, and then we all just press play at the same time. Okay. So that's what we're gonna do. But let's finish the
And I'll
comments.
mute my headphone. Oh, yeah, Cardo, mute your headphone when you press play too, or your speaker. Yeah, but we all definitely agree with you, Nate. Nasty Nate, as far as Orkun's future. It looks bright. And thank you. Oh, now I hear SoundCon.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Nathan, thank you for that prediction there, for that contribution. Man, my brain is fried.
Okay. So.
Nasser says he rewatched the game as well. Kenny stretches the play and shows real hunger, but I felt like he played it a bit safe at times, often opting for sideways or backward passes. Hopefully, as his confidence grows, we'll see him take on more players. His in-game decision-making definitely needs to improve. Yeah, and again, I think that's kind of what you'd see with him playing more, ideally.
Mm-hmm.
Con, tell me when you're ready, though, and I'll stop reading comments.
No. Finish the comments.
I could hear it as well. By the way, I was on.
Okay.
mute.
Okay.
But I
Just
can hear it.
finish the finish the comments, and then we can get
Cool.
into more in a bit. But that's good.
Nathan says, "Damn, sorry about the super chat. Interrupted you like that. Cartel, kind of obnoxious.
Sorry.
To be honest,
I'm sorry,
Nathan,
man.
we don't hear those sounds, so it's all good on our end.
Yeah, just
but
flash
yeah,
up on
sorry
the
to
screen.
everyone.
It's all right, man.
Yeah, we saw the.
I didn't take any offence to it. In fact, I was honoured that you donated to the podcast. Although it was nothing to do with me, but anyway.
Yeah. Although remember, guys, first rule of Fight Club: don't talk about Fight Club. No, I'm kidding. Grey Wolf, Kenny is young. If Ole does not like him, very least is to play him to display his talent so the club could sell him for a good price. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's one unanimous thing. The three musketeers here, we all agree that Kenny needs to be playing more. Yeah, you know. I mean, big picture, Con and I were talking about how there has always, like, throughout Beşiktaş's history in our time as fans, there have been personnel decisions that we've had trouble with even our favorite managers, right? So there's always going to be one guy who's like, oh, guys need to be playing more, and this coach isn't playing him.
Yeah.
So, like, at the end of the day, it's one small problem. So I don't think any of us is like, we should fire Ole because he's not playing Kenny. But
No.
we do all agree that he should play Kenny more.
Yeah, of
like,
course.
Kenny's a good
Yeah.
young talent.
Yeah.
Sarper throws up the 4 Beşiktaş logos. Shouts to Sarper. That's a special treat. Only what I call a premium subscriber could have access to. What are they really called, Con? I have yet to
Sorry.
refer to these people correctly.
What?
The premium subscriber. What are they called?
just-
the people
just
who
Black Eagle VIP members, you can just call them.
the VIP
Yeah,
members.
the
Okay,
Black
there you
Eagle
go.
VIPs is what they are, essentially.
I'm always freestyling with that title. I don't know why. VIP members. Is Tammy on a loan deal for mandatory buy, or did we buy him?
He's mandatory, yeah. So the only reason...
Yeah, he's mandatory in a manner that he's definitely bought.
The only reason that... the only reason he's... not officially signed yet is for financial fair play, basically. And because Beşiktaş don't necessarily have the funds yet right now, if that makes sense. Because of the Dikilitaj project and all that kind of stuff. So, it's gonna be... He is bought. He is our player.
Yeah. Trabzonspor. I think that was because we were talking about the Rodallega moment. Grey Wolf, what are the chances Tammy has a fantastic breakout year and gets a huge offer in the winter break or after the season? I mean, look, man, he's got 4 goals in 3 matches, so the chances are looking bright. I mean, not necessarily that he'll get a huge offer. I mean, surely that would probably follow him having a really good season, although I would imagine that's more like a summer issue. Now, whether or not we take that offer is another question. I don't know.
Well,
right?
I think
that would be a hard person to replace.
If you sell your star striker, it has to be in the summer.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and you have to make sure you have a really solid replacement coming in.
We fucked that. If we remember the last time we done that, we really fucked it. We signed Wijnaldum instead.
Yeah, we don't need a.
Oh, I see.
Wagner
I see. Galatasaray already got the first penalty of the season, by the way.
Yeah, we're about to get there in the chat. Someone already. Yeah.
Oh dear God. Yeah.
What do we expect? Who knows? Maybe it's legit, but we can probably assume there's at least a question mark. But yeah, I definitely think that right now the odds are looking good. Who asked that?
I think you need to keep into consideration as well that Tammy is, of course, an English citizen, so the home ground player thing is very valuable. So if he does have a really good season with us, let's say he scores 20, 25, 30 goals this season in all competitions, I definitely do think there will be very serious concrete interest from the Premier League. I think the only reason that he ended up joining us this season is because probably the Premier League clubs are still a little bit hesitant, want to see how he comes back from his injury. But I think if he has a monster season and he stays healthy, I definitely think there will be some serious interest in him next summer. And keep in mind, he'll still only be 28 in the summer, so there's no reason why we wouldn't be able to sell him for 20, 25, 30 million if he has a really good season.
Put your fingers in your ears, Nasser, for what I'm about to say, but like, for example, when Šeško is a huge flop come next summer, you could totally see Man U coming in with a unreasonably high offer to fix their problem. You can take your finger out of your ears now, Nasser, if you're there. Nasser, speaking of Nasser, the first half was a clear blueprint of how we want to play and set up controlled, structured transitions and some really effective pressing. Hopefully we see more of this going forward. Yeah, and again, right, like not a high quality opponent. I mean, there are probably some Super League sides at about their level, maybe, like at the bottom end of the spectrum, but...
I don't know. I honestly think they would relegate to the Super League. They didn't have much quality at all, I thought.
Yeah. Probably.
I mean, I think the young kid Milia was clearly talented, but he's already signed by Tottenham, and you can understand why. I think that Powers guy that ended up scoring in the first half, he was completely in Svensson's back pocket. When Svensson came off at halftime and he got a little bit more space, he wasn't bad. Maybe he's a player that could play in the Super League. But and Forrester, he seemed like a quality player as well. Honestly, I think he's somebody that could probably play in the Super League. But by and large, I think they would probably be. I don't think they would compete very well in the Turkish league, honestly. So I do think that the level of opposition was quite low, I think. We need to keep that in mind because Obviously, I think somebody commented that celebrating a win against St. Patrick's is something that what did he say, like shameful or something. I wouldn't go quite that far. I think any match that you win, you're able to celebrate is a big word, and obviously I think for us it's very important. One of the most important things in football is momentum and is confidence. And I think one of the most important things is that we start building some momentum and confidence. And I think a game like this is perfect for that. And another game like that, hopefully on Thursday, with a decent crowd, decent sized crowd, which I'm actually curious about. Katal, you and especially your brother Özcan, you're kind of you kind of have the finger on the pulse when it comes to predicting when the stadium's gonna be full. So, do you expect the stadium to be close to full on Thursday? Obviously, St. Patrick's isn't the most attractive opponent, but there is the possibility of seeing a lot of goals, seeing the new signings, maybe see Tammy make another hat trick, maybe see Orkun score his first goal. Do you think that alone is enough to fill out the stadium on Thursday? Because I do imagine the ticket prices will be quite high again.
I mean, we hope so, but we just need to see the numbers first. Once it's Özcan, it's my brother's very, very good at that. I don't really have too much knowledge of it, but as soon as Özcan sees the number of tickets sold, he'll be able to tell us if it's going to be full or not. But hopefully that result is enough to drive fans to the stadium.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Do they really have Shifo shaving?
Are
they buying into the Castaway thing?
Video, man. We need to get to that video.
That would be amazing. I mean, that's like a good self-own, but like.
What would be amazing if he had like a little volleyball in the background on his little boat.
Yeah, with the face
on it. That would be fantastic. That would be so self-aware. That would be amazing.
That would be yeah.
Let's get to the comments, Sidan, and then like.
We're almost there, I think. Yeah, I think we're almost there. But yeah, Nasser, for sure. Like that first half, we'd love to see us play like that as much as we can, despite whatever the opposition might be. Orkun is I actually like this comment from Sapper because we were comparing him to Jose Sousa, and he said, or Jose, I guess he wasn't Portuguese. Sapper said Orkun is what we wanted Ozzy to be, and I like that comparison in that I think he offers a lot of what Ozzy did going forward.
Yeah,
but he also has the grit and the determination to be like playing like in all facets of the pitch, which Ozzy often lacked. So that I like that comp.
It's what we wanted Ozan to be, but it's
I was saying since last year that about someone similar to Tolga Arslan that's got like the Tolga Arslan comp. It's got all the fundamentals to be a great midfielder, but just more consistent. I think we probably got the best version of that we could possibly get.
Do you think he's more similar to Tolga or more similar to Oğuzhan Katal?
I think Tolga Arslan, from what I've seen, maybe dribbled more. But I think Orkun is, I'd say he's stronger than Tolga, because Tolga was always a more physical presence and was more dynamic than Oğuzhan, and I think Orkun's even more dynamic than him. He's stronger than him. He's more physical than him. So I think there's elements of both there. I think the passing game is probably closer to Oğuzhan because Oğuzhan was better at that. So I think he's closer a bit in terms of his physicality. He's closer to Tolga, and I'd say he's even more physical than Tolga because Orkun's not very tall, but he's very, very stocky, man. He's very, very well built.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like maybe Ozan's a better comp because he does some of the Ozan things as far as ball distribution and those long balls that are so accurate. And in a way, like the way he's more like Tolga, he's actually so much better than Tolga that I almost feel like a Tolga comp is like, like Tolga wasn't good enough in any
passer of the ball as well.
Not like Ozan.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like Tolga wasn't good enough at anything to be comp to Orkun. Like I'm not shitting on Tolga. Like I mean, he was pretty good, obviously.
Tolga, when he was on, he was really good, but he was somebody who switched off. And I think what you see in Orkun is kind of like the perfect blend of Oğuzhan and Tolga. Like he has like the strong aspects of both players. But
and probably better in those aspects as well.
And yet he's like better than
I think the big difference is mentality. I think Orkun is mentally really, really strong. and he's a really hard worker, and he's a born leader. Whereas with Oğuzhan, I think Oğuzhan had all the talent, and I think Oğuzhan in terms of talent was probably on par with Orkun, but he didn't.
Yeah, especially in his passing game. Like I'd say that's probably where Oğuzhan's probably can compete with him. Especially it's probably the passing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the only thing that Orkun has that is clearly better than Oğuzhan is the shooting.
The motor.
He's a very very
the
good
motor
shooter.
As well.
The motor as well. But don't underestimate Oğuzhan's motor though. Oğuzhan covered a lot of distance.
And the strength.
Yeah,
and the strength as well. I'd say because.
The problem was
he's a stocky lad, but like Oğuzhan was,
I think
was skinny.
Yeah, Orkun has a lower center of gravity, I think, which makes him very balanced. Whereas with like you said, Oğuzhan was a bit big, was a bit taller, and he was like more lanky, weaker in physical duels for sure. But don't underestimate the amount of ground that Oğuzhan covered. He had a decent motor in him as well, I would say.
He could, and I think that was also part of the problem with Ozan was that there was always the question of like when he applied all of his energy to a match, right? And I think with Orkun, at least so far, like there's never really a question of like is he giving his all? It seems like Orkun's much more consistent with his application. But anyway, back to the comments. We're almost there. Everyone's asking for the Ndidi video for a minute there. Motorcycle. Apparently, there's a motorcycle involved. Then we had Animals of the World, which is a funny name, by the way. Do you Turk? Why do you speak English?
Yeah.
I can't understand.
Yeah, we answered that.
Yeah, and then Khan gave him a good long answer. So I'll leave that. Apparently, it's a Shifo. There's a horse. Wow, we have a motorcycle, a horse, and Shifo. This sounds like I can't wait for this video.
All right. So let's get to that then. So we talked about the match at nauseam. We talked about it. We covered it. I think we're good. Obviously, we have the return next week against St. Patrick's at the Tüpraş Stadium. That will be played at 9 local time in Turkey. It will be 8 Central European time. The match, is it going to be broadcast on the same channel? Kahal, do you know if it's still going to be on Esport?
I'm not sure, brother. We'll find out, I'm sure, within the next few days.
Let's hope it's on Esport because I got a month of Esport.
Yeah, I paid for it as well.
Especially for that. So we'll be sure to do a watch along and then figure out what channel it's on. So in the meantime, that gives me a perfect segue to point you to that QR code right below here. Go and scan that with your phone. Join our WhatsApp community. Become a member there. You don't have to pay for it or anything. It's completely free. Just join the WhatsApp community. It's active 24/7. There's constant news being posted in there. If there's any developments in terms of transfers, constant discussions, great atmosphere, and of course a bunch of us, not all of us, but a bunch of us watched the game together on Thursday. We'll be doing the same again, hopefully this coming Thursday. So go ahead and join us there. And then we can, you can be part of one of our watch-along parties. Other than that, of course, go to patreon.com/Beşiktaş, become a VIP member, Black Eagle VIP member. You will gain access to extra new content. You can also join on YouTube by hitting the join button, and you will get similar extra content, but not all of it, because some of it will be copyright struck, and that stuff only goes up on Patreon, unfortunately. But for example, the Schwarding Report is a monthly podcast that Sinan Schwarding does, in which he grades all the players, the coaching staff, the board. So if we talked about it, we alluded to it multiple times already throughout the podcast today. Sinan actually goes and he has a notepad, and every player he puts like positives and negatives next to their name for every game, and then he will recap that at the end of every month in the Schwarding Report, which is a VIP exclusive podcast. So go and check that out. On top of that, we also have the VIP exclusive, the VIP podcast, which I usually host on my own, but sometimes I get joined by one of these two gentlemen or by Ural, and we talk about what's going on in business today and all that kind of stuff. When there's a lot of news, a little bit too much to cram into our weekly live episodes, we do the VIP podcast, and that is also Patreon and YouTube membership exclusive. So hit the join button on YouTube or go to patreon.com/Beşiktaş and don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe. So let's talk about our big new signing of the week. Beşiktaş have signed Wilfred Ndidi, the 28-year-old Nigerian defensive midfielder from Leicester City. He's been playing for Leicester since the 2017-18 season, if I'm not mistaken. I believe 2016-17 was his last season at Racing Genk, and he's been playing for Leicester for close to 7 years. He signed for Beşiktaş today. It was made it official. We signed him for 8 million euros. He's 28 years old, and he's known as a very capable defensive midfielder, a ball-winning defensive midfielder, which I think, guys, is the profile we were looking for. But we will talk more about whether or not Wilfred Ndidi is the right profile, all that kind of stuff. Let's go and check out the announcement video that Beşiktaş dropped like half an hour ago. So let's go and watch that together. I'm pressing play now. Get ready.
We can hear it, Con. That's like to all of us fans, right? Have some tea. Shut the fuck up.
I just realized the sound wasn't turned on for people watching, so maybe we should rewind it.
Where are we?
Yeah, start over again.
Yeah,
Let's do
yeah.
it. Why not?
I'm sorry about that, guys. Now you should have sound.
Should I mystery science theater this shit? Are we allowed to talk a little bit in the background?
I think that's fine, yeah.
This feels like it has to be an allusion, right? To the fact that he's been missing in action for a few days.
We have been waiting for you. It took some time.
Yeah, there were some obstacles, but you know, Captain, good things take time.
He's gonna be late for sure, bro.
The rules are clear.
Yeah.
If you're late, you're out. Just drink and relax. Please.
Thank you.
That's for the Twitter fans out there. Have some tea. Relax. Maybe for me.
Where are we? Don't worry. Almost.
Whoa.
We are waiting for you.
Very little time left. Captain, we have been waiting for you. Please.
Tekrar hoş geldin. Senin de söylediğin gibi güzel şeyler zaman alır. Burası Kara Kartallar Cemiyeti.
Sen de cemiyetimize katılmak üzeresin. Çok başarılı olacağından eminim.
Hoş geldin evlat.
Little guy. The 4.
Oh, there's one more thing.
What?
Sancho in 2021.
Oh, it's not done.
Hold on. We got a end credit scene.
Yeah, basically, they're taking another shot for someone else.
Is that a little?
I like the video, guys, but fucking Atiba should have been giving him that shot. Like, why is Surya Soner giving him the shot? I get he's a legendary kit man, but come on, like Atiba should be that should be a passing of the torch moment. But other than that,
there's a couple there's a couple of good Easter eggs in there. I don't know if you spotted them, but like which one was it? Come on, there was a couple of moments where I thought, like if you're late, you're out. Clearly, that's a reference to Kyle Walker-Peters, right?
Yeah,
must be
for sure.
And then there was one before that, right before that as well, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But yeah, I mean, the production quality on these is amazing. We've gone from the very cringy come to Beşiktaş.
The Batshuayi, remember the Batshuayi Batman costume?
Well, I think the come to Beşiktaş ones were kind of cringe, but they were cringe in a good way. Like they were.
Yeah.
Not super professional, but they were so wrong that they were great. But then, like, you had like the Batshuayi one, which was just like, which was trying to be high end, but it looked absolute shit. And this is what, if you are going to try and do it properly, this is what you should be doing, because these are great. Anything
that was more than the critique. Atiba should have been passing him the jersey, not Surya Soner.
I wondered, Khan, if the deadline, like you're going to be late, was an allusion to maybe a kind of reflection. Okay, we're like a little slow with the transfers, but like relax, right? Which was a common theme, like telling people to calm down, have some tea, the relax song. But then it felt like there's also like we have to get these transfers in by Sunday. I actually wonder if maybe they got the paperwork in for
Ndidi, that's what I'm thinking.
So that he could play for next Thursday.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Because it had to be 24 hours before
So
the match, and it was close enough.
Can we play next Thursday?
I don't think so.
Only if we got the paperwork in by a certain
league game. He plays it. We'll play in the league, I think. But
we would have had to have gotten his paperwork in before a certain like X amount of hours before the match.
24 hours before the game. So. He arrived
that was a question for me in that, right? He arrived like a few hours before. Maybe they got the paperwork in before he flew into so there were question marks for me in that regard.
It's possible, but I don't think it'll. Probably. I suspect that won't be. I suspect that won't be the case. Like I don't think he'll be able to play on Thursday. Well, he'll definitely be able to play in the league game, and also be able to play in the postponed league game against Kayserispor. So that's a positive. Any other takeaways from the video, guys? I mean, other than it should have been Atiba handing him the shirt. One of the things I did, there was like when he presents the number 4 shirt, then the camera panned to Atiba and he had like a look. I thought that was like, if he would have had like number 13, that would have been like perfect. But he didn't though, he had number 4. Which is fine. I have no problem with that, but yeah, I mean... I'm not too bothered by the fact that it's Surya Soner handing him the shirt instead of Atiba.
I have one more thought. Maybe the fact that it was a motorcycle that drives off at the end with the suitcase.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember the last famous scene with the motorcycle and getting paperwork in and all that, right?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
It was like so maybe it was like. Maybe it's a winger is next, winger incoming. So that could have been a fun.
Yeah, could be. Could be.
People are saying that there's some references in the song that they chose. I don't know anything about that.
They're saying that Man U used that song to announce Sancho in 2021.
Relax.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
We could have a look at that. We could have a look at the announcement video of Sancho. Wait, let's see. Jadon Sancho, Man United announcement. Let's see. Let's see. Let's have a look. We'll have a look at the Jadon Sancho, but I think that would be kind of like premature though, right? Because he's far from signed at the moment, right? But let's have a look. Let's have a look at that video. All right. So pulling that one up. Let's see if it's true what they're saying, that that's what they used for Jadon.
This is the place.
Home.
Our home.
The theatre of dreams. The heart of United beats here. It's a family united by common bonds, by shared experiences.
United through and through.
It's not where you're from, it's where you belong.
Something deep in our hearts.
Wherever we roam. And when the whistle goes, it calls us home. Whoever we are, wherever we go, we are all.
I don't know if I picked the right video.
This is my club. This is where I belong.
Yeah, they're saying it's like on an Instagram post, not on the actual video itself.
Okay.
So I'm trying to ask Gemini if he can put it up for me, but
Yeah. Well, it definitely didn't use it in that video, that's sure.
Yeah.
So whoever's saying that, if it's the Instagram post, okay. Jadon Sancho, Man United announcement, Instagram. Let's have a look. We can find it on there. Sancho, Man United. Here we go. No, official Sancho joins Man United. Would that be it? On Instagram. That's a picture. I don't know. Regardless, it definitely doesn't seem like Jadon Sancho or anything like that is like close to happening at the moment, at least. Although Seladala did say last week 10 days, and I think those 10 days are almost up. Probably 3 or 4 more days, and then it'll be up, I imagine. So, what was it?
Yeah, I mean, you hope it's in by Sunday, right? Because that's when it would have to be in by for them to be able to play against Kayseri. So
Yep, that's right.
That's a deadline of sorts.
That's not gonna happen, though. That's not gonna happen. Let's be honest. We're not gonna.
You don't think so? It's only Friday. No. It's only Friday, Con. Come on.
We're not signing a winger before Sunday. That's not happening.
Hurry up, Serdal.
All right, let's.
I hope Serdal was on that motorcycle.
If you do end up finding it, Kath, just drop it in our WhatsApp group, and I'll play it when we get around to it.
Should I go back to the chat?
Well, no. Let's talk about Wilfred Ndidi now. So Beşiktaş have signed a new number 6, Wilfred Ndidi. And let's talk a little bit about the profile, because I've been seeing some interesting takes online, which I personally don't really agree with. I mean, we've been talking about the 6 we need. I mean, I think I said from the start, like, in my opinion, the ideal 6 is a very strong defensive 6, somebody that can play in function of Rafa and in function of Orkun, who can alleviate their defensive workloads and take that aspect of the game not 100% for himself. Of course, Orkun and Rafa are going to have to help out. Orkun probably more so than Rafa. But I do think, like, in my opinion, the ideal 6 for a midfield with Orkun and with Rafa is a 6 that focuses 90% on the defensive aspect of the game, ball retention, ball recuperation, and just delivers the ball into Orkun and allows Orkun to be the playmaker. I've seen some interesting takes. For example, Umut Öztürk from Sports Digitale, he was talking about a playmaking 6, or at least a 6 that has playmaking ability. I don't quite understand why he would push towards that, because I think if you put like a playmaking 6, in my opinion, if you say playmaking 6, I think of Al Musrati. I don't think that's the profile we need. Now, obviously, look, if Al Musrati had a motor and was able to also contribute defensively a lot and was still able to pin those balls, that would be amazing. But I don't think you need that when you have Orkun. Because then you're just one of the things with Al Musrati, which I don't know if you guys noticed, but when Al Musrati was playing, was we skipped center play a lot because he was constantly opening up to the wings, and you utilize Rafa less, for example. I think if you have a more playmaking six, that also means Orkun is gonna see less of the ball. I don't necessarily think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I want to, just a correction to make, guys. I must have misread it the first time. So, when they announced him on Instagram, they just showed taking it easy, and so that's when they announced Sancho on Instagram. They just showed taking it easy with a photo of him, and then the song that Ndidi listened to is Mika Relax, Take It Easy. So I think it's a bit of a reach. I think.
Yeah,
really know the reality of it.
It does feel
it's not the same.
Yeah, it definitely.
It's a reach. So is it? Yeah. So I don't think. I mean, it might be connected, man, but I think it's a reach. It's not the same song. It's just the post.
Yeah. Okay.
Just taking it easy.
Let us know in the comments, by the way, if you think that the people online are reaching with that. Also, let us know in the comments what you think of Wilfred Ndidi. What you think of the profile? Do you think that's the right profile for our midfield? Guys, I think we've talked about profiles a lot this window. I feel like that's something we haven't talked about in the past much. I feel like in the past we were often just making transfers for the sake of making transfers. We needed a winger. Okay, let's sign a winger. We need a defensive midfielder. Okay, let's sign a defensive midfielder. But we were never really talking about whether the puzzle pieces fit. I think that so far this season, the transfers we've made, the puzzle pieces fit. These look like transfers that make sense. Not just position-wise, but also profile and style-wise. Do you guys think that Wilfred Ndidi is the right fit for the midfield we are constructing? And I'll start with you, Kartal. The camera's on you.
Yeah, I think it's the right fit, man, because he's going to be playing in a double pivot with Orkun. Orkun's going to be dealing with the playmaking. He's going to be the conductor of the play in the midfield. So when you have a player like Orkun, I don't think you necessarily need a ball playing number 6 like an Al Musrati, for example. I think that made a lot more sense when you had an 8 like, and for example like Jedson, who their passing ability wasn't their strong suit, but now I think we've got a very good 8, a very good.
Bless you.
Thank you very much. We've got a very good ball playing 8. He's a great passer of the ball. So I think we don't necessarily need that ball playing ability from the 6. Obviously, in an ideal world, they could do everything. You'd have a 6 that was great defensively and was great at passing as well. But I don't think we necessarily need it when you've got Orkun there beside him. So I think it's the right profile to prioritise the defensive side of things.
To be clear,
obviously,
Carter,
if it was someone that was like just brilliant at everything, obviously that'd be better. But I think
are you saying he's not a good passer?
Prioritise the right thing there, I think.
Are you saying he's not a very good passer, Carter?
Was that?
Are you saying that he's not known for being a very good passer?
From my research, he's not. His pass completion percentage is quite low for a midfielder.
Okay. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean,
what do you mean by quite low? By the way, like 77%.
It's like low 80s.
That's not that low, though.
Oh,
that's not
bad. Okay, yeah, I was expecting 70s or something. Yeah, I mean, I saw his highlight reels, which you can't take much from, and like there are a lot of beautiful passes on them, but it does seem like the core focus is his ability on the ball, like to make decisive tackles, to work his way out of trouble once he's got the ball from someone, which is, I think, precisely what we need, as Khan and I think you too, Cartel, were alluding to, right? Like, as long as he can get the ball to Orkun or Rafa if they're nearby, it doesn't necessarily matter if he has that like decisive killer final pass. Although obviously, yeah, it would be nice. Again, he had a lot of highlights with some beautiful passes, even some nice crosses, interestingly. But
Yeah, I mean,
it did seem like they're mostly from the right side, so maybe his weak foot isn't as strong in that sense or something. Perhaps, his
pass accuracy
for
the context. His pass accuracy this past season in the Premier League was 82.4, and the season before that in the Championship, his pass accuracy was 82.3%. Let's have a look at the season before that in the Premier League, 22-23. His pass accuracy, where is it? It was 84%. So, I mean, obviously it's not like 90-95%, which a lot of safe passers usually have, but that could indicate some more risks taken in his passing game. So,
just as an example, though, so he had 5 assists last season, according to Nasser, which is more than Jedson had for us. Which is, like obviously Jedson is notorious for not being a good passer, perhaps in some ways, but so at least he offers more, perhaps in that regard.
Maybe we should have a look at that. So last season he had 30 appearances, 1 goal, 5 assists. The season before that in the Championship, 36 appearances, 6 goals, 6 assists. The season before that in the Premier League was 30 appearances, 0 goals, 0 assists. Season before that was 31 appearances, 2 goals, 1 assist. Season before that, again for Leicester, 36 matches, 1 goal, 4 assists. Season before that, again Leicester, 39 matches, 2 goals, 1 assist. Season before that, again Leicester, 40 appearances, 2 goals, 1 assist. Season before that, 38 appearances, 1 goal, 3 assists. And then his first season at Leicester City was 23 appearances, 3 goals, 1 assist. And at Racing Genk in his final season, 34 appearances, 3 goals, no assists. Then the season before that, 43 appearances, 4 goals, 1 assist. And then in his first ever season professionally for Genk, 6 matches, 0 goals, 0 assists. So, I mean, this is obviously not a player that's going to get you a ton of goals or a ton of assists, but neither was Atiba in the beginning, right? I did notice that, I think this was again a post from Umut Öztürk, I think. He did mention that I believe last season he played more in an 8 role, more of a little bit more offensively, like how Atiba played in the 2021 season when Atiba got really good numbers. That's probably why he got the 6 goals and the 6 assists. So it's not necessarily a lack of ability to score and a lack of ability to assist, but probably just that he plays a lot as the holding midfielder, as a deeper midfielder. So isn't necessarily tasked to make penetrating runs and all that kind of stuff. We'll have to wait and see how Ole utilizes him. The biggest question mark, I think, is the fact that since 2020, in the last 5 years, he has missed a total of 75 matches due to injury.
Yeah.
It is worth pointing out, though, that last season, I think Nasser posted this in our community chat, he played 87% of all potential minutes for Leicester City. So it's not like he didn't play a lot. And also, even though that he's missed a significant amount of games in the last 5 years, he hasn't dipped under 30 appearances a single time in the last 5 seasons. In fact, throughout his career, we have to go back to the 2016-17 season, his first season at Leicester, for less than 30 appearances. Other than that, I'm starting at the 2017-18 season, 38 appearances, 40 appearances, 39 appearances, 36 appearances, 31, 30, 36, 30. So, it does seem like his injuries are probably a little bit more nagging, not necessarily massive injuries that hold him out for 5-6 months. But that's the biggest concern is his fitness, I think. But Kartal, you made a post on Reddit. Maybe you can give us some snippets from what the people, the Leicester fans on Reddit had to say about our new player, Wilfred Ndidi.
Yeah. Most of them seem to think he'll do a good job. They're saying he's better than Amarte, which is always good to hear. Because he was terrible.
Wow, he's better than Amarte. That's good.
They're saying that the key is him staying fit. His game is based around his athleticism, his physical power, and his ability to break up play.
Yeah.
A couple of people have said that he's not the player he was before, which has me a bit concerned. Others are saying that besides the injuries, and if his role's just going to be to break up play and win balls for the team, then he'll be very useful. But someone also said that he's got 2 left feet, and he's technically he's not very good, but again he is very good defensively. So yeah, I mean it's a bit mixed. Some people are saying that they're sad to see him go because he was a great servant. Some saying he's regressed a lot since his injuries. Some saying basically everyone unanimously has thought that he'd be better. And then the positive side to take of it is we want him to come and win the ball for us and break up play. And the general consensus seems to be if that's going to be his role, he'll still be able to do a very good job of that.
Yeah. And that is really, I mean, I think that is what's going to be his main role, right? That's his main responsibility. We're not going to expect him to be a creative fulcrum for us. That's what Orkun is there for. That's what Rafa is there for. That's hopefully what the new wingers are going to be there for. That's hopefully what Kenny is going to be there for. Those are the players that have to make the difference offensively. And I think we need Ndidi to be our defensive fulcrum, really, giving us, forming the spine of the team, making us less vulnerable on the counter, making us more dominant in midfield, being able to retain possession, win back the ball quickly. And he is, at least, one of the things that he has going for him is that in terms of tackle completion rate, ball recuperation, all that kind of stuff, he had in his peak, at least, among the top numbers in Europe. I don't know what it was like last season, but he was doing really well on those. Let's have we could have a look at his stats, in fact, for the last season in the Premier League. Let's have a look at his per 90 data here. And let's have a look at the defensive ones, which are, let's have a look at his top speed first. So his top speed is 32.3 kilometers per hour. His average distance covered, his average distance covered per game is 10,948 meters, so 11 kilometers. He spends about 3 kilometers of that walking and 7.6 kilometers running. And he pulls about, this can be right, 8.44 sprints per game, which is, I think, pretty normal. Well, actually, that's not super high. It's 52%. He's on the 52nd percentile in that regard. In terms of in terms of distance covered, in terms of top speed for midfielders, he is in the 78th percentile. Let's have a look then at his pass accuracy, which is something that got brought up. So last season was 82.4%. That brings him in the bottom 23% in the Premier League for midfielders. So that's why Kartal was talking about that earlier, that it's pretty low. But I think 82.4%, that's still, that's not too bad. Let's see, in terms of touches, that's not super high. Fouls 1, defending, I think, is going to be important. So tackles 1, he is on 1.96 tackles 1 per game, which puts him in the top 77, which puts him in the 77th percentile. Then tackles 1 percentage is 60%. That puts him in the 59th percentile. It's not super high. Duels 1 percentile is pretty high. He is on 84% percentile in terms of duels 1. He's on 6.82 duels per game, and success rate of that is 49.7%, which is only the 38th percentile. But I think just because of the sheer amount of duels he engages, he's in the 84th percentile because of that. Then anything else that is important, maybe interceptions, 1.19 per game, which puts him in the 63rd percentile. And fouls committed is an interesting one, 1.5 fouls per game, which is the 47th percentile. doesn't seem too high. And recoveries, 4.89 recoveries per game. That's pretty high, I would think, but only 41st percentile, so that is surprising. Possession won in the final third, 0.39 per game, which puts him in the 44th percentile. And dribbled past, he is dribbled past 1.19 times per game, which puts him in the 45th percentile. So, I mean, honestly, these numbers aren't super impressive for last season, but you have to keep in mind as well where Leicester were. Obviously, they ended up relegating. In terms of yellow cards, he got 0.31 yellow cards per game and no red cards all season. So in that, he is obviously in the 100th percentile. Yeah. Anything to add, boys, to Wilfred Ndidi? What are your thoughts on the transfer? What do you think of the transfer fee? Let's start with that. 8 million euros, 28 years old. Cathal, what do you think?
I mean, what seemed to be a common consensus in the Leicester subreddit was that the fee we're paying is a steal for him. I mean, but we need to look at it in the context of these are Premier League football fans who are used to huge transfer fees.
Yeah, he's valued at 15 million euros according to Transfer Market.
So I mean, if you look at the numbers online, it does seem to be a steal. Defensively, his numbers are good. So hopefully he can be the player we need him to be. So we'll just need to wait and see. Obviously, it sounds good on paper, but obviously we need to wait and see how he performs in a Beşiktaş shirt.
Yeah, for sure.
See, it's also, I was going to say, Khan, I think it's important when you're looking at those percentiles, especially to recognize that he was playing for one of the weaker sides in the Premier League. I bet a lot of those percentiles would look better in the Super League. Like, the rate, for example, if he had that many, for example, recoveries per match, my guess is that looks significantly better in Turkey.
Well, we
even just those numbers.
Well,
and then and what you can't really articulate.
If we look at we can look at the Championship numbers, which is maybe a little bit more comparable to the Super League. Now, I'm not one of those people who's going to say, "Oh, the Championship is great," but obviously, I think the Championship gap with the Super League is probably smaller than the Super League with the Premier League. So we can have a look at those if you'd like.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and then even then, right? What I was going to suggest is that his role within the team is sort of shifting, right, away from him being sort of more of a central. I mean, if he was in more of an 8 role, right? Like, I feel like a lot of the things that don't look so good statistically could be minimized if there's less responsibility. Like, if he's just shifting the ball over to Orkun, for example, and letting him do more of the dirty work. So perhaps that would be minimized via the personnel we have on the team. I can't think of who Leicester had next to him in their midfield, but I'd be willing to bet Orkun is better. Given he was starting for Benfica
the
rather than
chances of that are pretty significant for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Let's have a look. Gonna send myself the picture and then I'm gonna post it. So these are gonna be his Championship numbers, and I'll bring them up in a second here.
There you go.
On the screen. Just need to down.
By the way, real quickly, it's worth noting. So apparently, the jockey that was on the horse that gave Ndidi the invitation to the Black Eagle Society or whatever it was, or maybe was it the case? No, the case with the jersey.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's like a famous horse jockey.
Oh. All right.
From whatever that is. You can only imagine Serdar Azali must have used his connections there.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. Me neither. All right, so here,
for people who that matter.
Here are his numbers in the Championship, by the way. Let me just resize that a little bit. For fuck's sake, where's that? There you go. Those are the numbers in the Championship last season. So, 1.05 tackles 1 per game, which puts him at a 62% success rate, which is the top 80%. Duels won 4 points. So it's quite comparable, really. Like, he wins about 50% of his duels, which is about 4.5 per game. Aerials, it's all very similar to the championship, to the champions, the Premier League stats. But I think also one of the things that you need to take into consideration is just the sheer amount of duels that he engages, and that's an important aspect of his game. Obviously,
willingness to engage in duels is important for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and as Atil mentions here. He's never played for a possession-dominant team. He'll do really well in our league. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, is that the dynamics of what we're providing him are different. So I think that his strengths could be suited in our system, whereas his weaknesses
obviously
minimized.
In the championship, you would have imagined Leicester, because they won
they'd
promotion.
be dominant. Exactly.
Yeah, so you would imagine. But in that season, he had 6 goals, 6 assists, which is worth pointing out. So, yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to wait and see. Like, you have to do with every transfer. You have to wait and see how
that's right.
every transfer works out. But it's always, in hindsight, you're going to be able to say, okay, this was a steal for 8 million, or we overpaid, or whatever, So it's always going to have to, we're always going to have to wait and see. But I think on paper, Wilfred Ndidi is a really good signing for us. But we've seen so many of those, like Frankowski last season for Galatasaray. On paper was a very good signing. Didn't work out. Wilfred Zaha on paper was a fantastic, phenomenal signing.
That's a good
didn't work out. Hakim Ziyech, same thing. On paper, phenomenal signing. Didn't work out. I'm mentioning a lot of Galatasaray players here. The reason I'm doing that is because I think, in the past couple of years, we've signed a lot of players where you're like, you're already kind of eyebrow raising, and you're like, that's kind of a gamble. Like Oxlade Chamberlain was a gamble. Like, he could work out really well,
for sure,
or he could be a total dud or be injured all the time. But I think Galatasaray and Fenerbahce have bought a lot of sure things over the years that ended up not being sure things. And I think that's kind of what Ndidi is gonna be. He is on paper a sure thing, but is he going to be that in practice? We'll have to wait and see. We can never say in advance.
And up top there, Nasser says one thing to note is that he's strong in the air defensively, so hopefully he can help. He can also be a threat for us during set pieces. And so he means, I think, attacking on set pieces. But what one might forget, and I think this actually might be before Nasser joined us, remember how weak we were defensively on set pieces, especially aerially? Like when Davinson Sanchez was lurking in the area.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we have someone who can get up there and be a bit of a presence in the air defensively, that alone could go a long way.
He's not that tall, I don't think. I think he's only like 182, 84 maybe. Let's have a look.
183, so he's 6 foot, man. So he's not overly tall.
It's not bad, right? 6 feet tall.
No, of course it's not. That's not bad, but like I think we've had in the past midfielders are like 188, 190. I mean, Atiba was pretty.
He's no Collie. He's no Collie.
No, yeah, exactly. Collie was pretty tall, but I don't know. Did you guys notice yesterday, by the way, at a certain point, Tammy and Emirhan, I think after one of his goals, were like embracing, and Emirhan, who's like 188. He looked tiny next to Abraham. Like, it's
Tammy Abraham could have been an NBA player in an alternate life.
Guy's massive. I think officially he's listed at 194, but I don't know, man. Like, he's so big. And I think that's also one of the.
It's remarkable how good he is technically, despite being so lanky, right? Like that was it. The second goal, the flick.
Yeah,
or the third.
The second one, yeah.
The second. The third was the penalty.
The second one was the nice one, then the third was the pen.
A smash in.
Yeah.
Not a tap in. No reaction.
Sorry,
I was waiting for Cartel's response.
I missed what you said there. Sorry, what was that?
I said it was a smash in, not a tap in.
Well, that didn't land. Sorry, Kyle.
No. I'll try again next week.
No, but you're right though. You're right. It wasn't much of a tap. No, but like that. Yeah, that second goal was class. Not even just the lob, which was beautiful, but even that little touch he made before to give himself space away from that defender to basically make it a 1-on-1. I mean, yeah, Tammy has a lot of technical ability for such a big dude. That's great to see.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like, with the exception of a against the better side, you need a stronger defensive presence than Demir Ege Tiknaz, as we saw against Shakhtar.
I even thought
so
in
that sense, Ndidi is huge.
I don't think he looked too good yesterday.
Yeah,
I agree.
People were saying that he had a sneaky, decent game. He wasn't as bad as I thought he was.
I thought Kartal
on the first
was
watch
better when he
was
came
bad.
on. I thought Kartal Kaira was better.
Kartal was good.
I think Kartal looks more
good.
ready than Demir, but I suppose Kartal is like 4 years older than him, so...
Well, I think Demir Ege has a higher ceiling, so that's probably why he gets the priority.
I definitely, right now, I definitely would prefer Kartal, and I think when Kartal came on, he was better, and I think that was at a
steadying
I feel like Kartal, steadying presence is a good thing, because I feel like that kind of coincided with us kind of recovering and taking the match back in our own hands, and I think Kartal had a part to play in that. And we talked about it last week, but I think Kartal is kind of a victim of the fact that he's similar to Orkun, and I think Ole kind of sees him in the same role. But honestly, I think yesterday, obviously it didn't matter much yesterday, but I think your strongest midfield yesterday is not Orkun and Demir Ege. I think it's Orkun and Kartal, honestly.
Yeah. It's looking like that just now, man.
Yeah. Obviously, that hopefully will change really soon, where it's going to be Orkun and Ndidi. But yeah, what do you guys like? I mean, I know we're back in the game now, but like, we already talked about it. We want to see Kenny start next week. But is there anyone that you really, really want to see starting on Thursday? And do you think that there's anyone that should be rested for the league game? Because I think we are in a situation where we can do it.
What would you guys think if it was to do like a full rotation? Do you think that'd be a good idea?
I mean, it depends, I think, right? Because, like, a full rotation, do we have a full squad?
We don't have a backup striker,
for example.
Yeah, because Hekimo was injured.
Yeah. I mean, I think Hekimo is back in training, right? Isn't he?
To be honest, I'm not sure, man. He might be. I've not been looking at the training photos, so I can't say.
I think I saw a report that he was...
Part of me feels like I would want to rest guys like Rafa, Orkun, like that on the one hand, but then with Orkun, part of you is like maybe he needs to still play a little bit to kind of get more comfortable in the role, so maybe play him for a half.
Or 60
but
minutes.
Like, I think Rafa you could give a break. Maybe play Mucci where you have Rafa if he's healthy, and then that way you can get Kenny on the wing.
But then on the other hand...
I would be a little more flexible.
Sinan, also, if you have to take into consideration, like, people who come to the stadium pay a lot of money for tickets, and they are not paying to see... I mean, they're paying to see Rafa Silva, they're paying to see Orkun, they're paying to see Tammy Abraham. I kind of think you owe it to them in a way to play them.
But look, not only that, but there's a lot to be said for them gaining the confidence out there, right? Playing well as a unit, right? Like gaining some momentum to bring into the regular season. Like, I feel like we all feel probably better about what happened yesterday than we should, in part because what we're seeing are those intangibles, right? We saw them start to gel as a unit. We start to see them, carry some momentum around. And that's really what you want to see coming out of this match, perhaps. So maybe you can't take it too.
My lineup against on Thursday would be Mert in goal, Jurasek on the left back. I'd play Emirhan on the left back. I'd play, if he's healthy again, I'd play Felix as the right center back. Because I think Emirhan,
Paulista deserves
exactly.
A rest.
Give Paulista a rest. He doesn't need to play every game. You want to,
and he's been so good so far. He doesn't
and
need
if Felix is fully recovered from his fever and is 100%, I think just give him the playing time.
Right. Get his feet.
At right back, I'd still start Svensson. In midfield, I think I'd give Orkun 60 minutes. I'd start Kartal. And then I start Rafa. On the left, I'd start Rasica. And on the right, I'd start Kenny. This is, of course, assuming Mucci isn't going to be 100% fit because he had to come off injured. And I'd still start with Abraham. And I'd give Rafa, Abraham, and Orkun 60 minutes. I'd sub all three of them off at 60. But I think you kind of owe it to the fans who show up for the game to play them.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly like if so. Nasser says that Mustafa is back in training. If he can get, maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes at the end of this match, for Tammy, that would be great just to,
exactly.
get him comfortable out there again.
Yeah, you don't want to rush.
No, yeah, I like what you're saying. I think you're absolutely right, and I think you're actually what I appreciated about the you took out specifically João Mário and Gabriel Paulista, who are basically two of our most consistently top performers from the preseason till now. And I think guys who have established themselves as playing well enough, consistently enough, that they could actually probably just get a rest, and you can kind of they'll slot right back in and keep playing at that level if they need to.
They're older players as well, so they'd probably benefit.
And they're older and injury prone.
And João Mário,
and valuable at this stage because of how well they're playing.
And João Mário has shown that he can really add something off the bench, so he can come on minute 60 and still the level of the game would not drop. He would maybe even add something. You can, if Mucci is fit enough, you can give him 30 more minutes. Otherwise, you just give Kenny the full 90, I think. But I think that is for me the single most important thing is Kenny has to start on Thursday. If Kenny doesn't start on Thursday, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah. See, talk about João Mário. I didn't verify it myself, but I saw someone wrote, and I tweeted that João Mário's had 12 goal contributions in 24 games under Ollie. That's crazy, isn't it?
That
I
could
didn't verify
be true.
it. I didn't verify it though, so it might be false.
Is that including friendlies, or is that only?
It seems like it might, man. To be honest, because the number seems a bit high for.
Yeah, it seems high.
He actually,
but he had a lot of contributions.
I would say that would not surprise me. Cartel, I don't know if you are able to be a loyal Schwarting Report watcher or listener. I don't know if you have a.
I've listened to a couple of them.
So
I don't know if you have do we give? I hope Cartel has Patreon.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So
good.
João Mário in his Beşiktaş career, last season he played 37 matches, 7 goals, 4 assists. This season he has 3 matches, 2 goals, 1 assist. So in total he has 9 goals and 5 assists. 9 goals plus 5 assists, so that is 14 goal contributions in total. So it is plausible that 12 of those have come under Ole, because I don't think he had a lot of them prior to that, honestly.
Yeah. So that's
the reason I mentioned the Schwarting Report, guys, is because when Ole arrived, he was very somewhere in the middle of my kind of rankings as far as his impact on the club.
Before he arrived,
by the end of the season, he ends 6th. I think he was 6th at the end of the season.
João Mário,
he really his performances.
We were getting rid of. I wasn't. I think I was the only person in.
I was with you. I
think us two were probably one of the only 2 people in the Beşiktaş fandom who were saying no. João Mário is a good footballer. He is good for.
Give him a break.
He's good for squad depth. We should keep him because he offers a lot. Before Ole came in, everyone and their mothers were getting rid of him and were saying he should be sent away, the same way that Ox should be sent away, the same way that all these players that we don't want to keep, like Amir, like Ox, would have to be sent away. And but at the time, there wasn't much argument to be made in terms of performance. You could see when he played that there's a quality player there, but it wasn't coming out. I think I even said those words. I think I'm maybe slightly paraphrasing, but I said something along those lines. He's there's a good player there. You can see it. It's just not coming out right now. But now I think ever since Ole took over, we've seen the good player that João Mário really is. And I think in terms of squad depth, he's a keeper in my opinion. And guys, there was this rumor in the last week or so that the Fenerbahce and Beşiktaş were working on a swap deal for Ifan Cankaveci and for maybe some other Fener players. And one of the names mentioned was João Mário. And my first reaction was, no way, Jose. No. I don't want to. I don't want to give João Mário to Fenerbahce because I think João Mário is a really good player. And I'm not saying that.
Did you say Jose because to Mourinho? Was that intentional?
No.
You said no way, Jose.
No, that wasn't.
We're saying no way to Mourinho.
That was a happy accident. I wish I could. I wish I was that quick.
Awesome.
Was that quick with it, but it wasn't.
That was good.
No, but I don't know. Would you guys take that deal? Let's say it was a straight up swap. João Mário for Ifan Cankaveci. Carta, would you take that deal?
For İrfan Can, I probably would, yeah. I'd take it for İrfan Can Kahveci.
I don't think I would, man. Like I'd be up for getting İrfan Can in a swap, but I'd give them Rashica or something. Or you know what?
Sure.
Another one that was suggested.
If they wanted Al Musrati, they could have him.
Mucci was another one actually that people were suggesting. Mucci for İrfan Can Kahveci. Would you take that?
I think it'd be a bit. I don't know about that because I think Mucci's got a lot more resale value, man. So I think he's getting more transfer market value than İrfan Can. But I do think
Mucci's 24, right?
İrfan Can would do a better job. Yeah, he's 24. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's then you're kind of weighing it up against each other, like right, like İrfan Can is 29, 30 years old, and Mucci's 24. So then you're weighing, okay, İrfan Can probably gonna have more of an impact, probably gonna be more decisive as a winger, but on the other hand, you have a player with 5, 6, 7, 8 years ahead of him. Obviously has more resale value. İrfan Can, if you get İrfan Can, that's not to sell him. That's like to end his, maybe, not to end his career necessarily, but to end his
productive stages.
Yeah, like he can go on to Sivasspor, to Başakşehir after when he's 32, 33, but you know what I mean, like, the prime, he's ending his prime. Whereas with Mucci, he still has to enter his prime. And I'm not a big fan of Mucci. I think, ideally we'd sell Mucci. But I don't know if I would take a swap deal for İrfan Can. I think then, like, I don't think İrfan Can was the only player mentioned, though. There were some other names being mentioned as well. But
Al Musrati, I would trade Al Musrati for him.
I would,
or I would trade. I would obviously Rashica.
But I do want to point out, I think Al Musrati at Fener would work.
He would be good there.
I think he would be good there because I think at Fener. Like, see, the problem with Al Musrati at Beşiktaş, I think, is Al Musrati is the type of player that you need to... Your midfield needs to function around him. And I don't think at Beşiktaş he was ever that player because we had Rafa, now we have Orkun and Rafa. Like, obviously, those are two players, like, the 6 needs to be in function of them, not the other way around. Whereas at Fenerbahce, they have Fred, they have... who else do they have? They have Szymanski, they have Amrabat. I think their midfielders are not to say that they would 100%.
I think it could potentially still have a problem if they were to say play Talisca at the 10 still. I think that would work.
I think they're getting rid of Talisca.
Well, they can't.
Supposedly Talisca's on the list.
Oh, he's on that list. Yeah, he's supposedly on that list. That's true. But they're never gonna get rid of Talisca. He's on 15 million a year. They're stuck with him for sure.
So they're
trying to trade him to us.
Sorry?
Are they legitimately trying to get rid of Talisca?
Apparently, that's what's being rumored.
Right.
I mean,
it makes no sense because he was probably their top performer in the second half of last season, was he not?
Goal wise, but there was a decent amount of penalties in there.
And a lot of them were kind of like garbage time. It felt like, but
I think he scored.
Whatever.
I think he scored a lot of goals, but like there was like 5 or so penalties in there. I could look it up actually. But yeah, supposedly they want to get rid of him. But like Fener, you know what Fener is like? He's a constant revolving door of players. I mean, obviously we kind of are in a way as well. But with Fener, it's different because they spend big every year on players. And then they get rid of them, or they try to get rid of them like the summer after. Like, how many big signings have they made over the years that ended up like being ousted? Not too long after. So I'm looking at Anderson Talisca right now. So this can be right. Oh, right. So in the league, he played 16 games, scored 9 goals, had 1 assist. From those 9 goals, 4 were penalties, so he had 5 goals.
Yeah, 5 from
without the penalties. So, I mean, that's not bad. That's a good amount of goals. 9 goals from 16 appearances. That's good, but we all know what the drawbacks of Talisca are, and Talisca is still good, but he's not 24, 25-year-old Talisca anymore. He's 31-year-old Talisca. he's, still scoring bangers, but maybe not as frequently as he was before. He's maybe a tad slower. I saw him score a lot less headers, for example. Like, when he was playing for us, obviously we had Quaresma, but he was scoring a lot of really, really phenomenal headers. Yeah. But, I don't know. Supposedly they want to get rid of him, but anyway, it's a Beşiktaş podcast, right?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. I just got confirmation. I can say a little later, which is good.
I think we're winding down, though, right? Like we're about to.
Yeah, just about. But so let's see. Let's finish the conversation. We've got there's a bunch of video talk. Ndidi's promo video. We had Animals of the World asking us about our English stuff. He approved of the concept. Animals of the World said, I want to know about Jonathan Rowe or Sancho. How can we do this? And then he finishes that up with you. What do you think about Rowe?
Well, I think with Jonathan Rowe, I don't know the player, honestly. I have to admit. I just
he's only 22.
I've only looked at his stats, and obviously in the championship the season before last, I think he had a really good season. From the top of my head, I remember looking at it. I think he had like 13 goals or something like that, which is really, really good for a winger, of course. But it is the championship at the end of the day. And then last season for Marseille, I think his numbers were pretty underwhelming. I'm just bringing them up on my phone right now. So last season for Marseille, 30 appearances, 3 goals, 4 assists. Now look, he's 22 years old. That's not terrible, but I think
a key thing to note though, Can, is he only started 6 games in the league, but
I was going to ask, where a lot of those substitutions.
Yeah. So in the league, he had 28 total appearances, 3 goals, 3 assists. I'll have a look at his minutes here. Let's see. In the league, he had. Does it say anywhere? Can't quickly find it. But anyway, but in the championship, the season prior to that for Norwich, he had 38 appearances, 13 goals, and 3 assists. So that is really quite good, of course. But that is championship. Let's not forget that. So I mean, personally, I think we already have one young winger that we're trying to hone and we're trying to polish up the diamond, which is Kenny Arroyo. I think personally I want someone that's more the finished article already when it comes to a winger. If we sign 2 wingers, then I'm all for someone like Jonathan Rowe. The thing is, of course, his price tag. Supposedly Marseille are looking to get around 20 million for him. That's a lot of money. We've seen this window, Beşiktaş are able to spend big transfer fees. But I think if Beşiktaş are going to spend a big transfer fee, I doubt we're going to do it on Rowe. I think on a player like that, we would be willing to pay 10-ish million, probably. I think if you talk, for example, about the Jadon Sancho, I think 15, 16, 17 million for Sancho is definitely something that Adala would be willing to do. With Sancho,
his name and his profile.
Yeah, but with Sancho,
his track
Sancho,
record.
the big issue is his wage, not his transfer fee. It's the wage. He's on 300,000 a year.
Cengiz Özdemir subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cengiz.
Thanks, Cengiz,
for subscribing. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be notified of our future episodes. But in terms of Sancho, I think the biggest issue is his wage, obviously, and of course also, are you able to convince him to come? But yeah, how are Beşiktaş going to do it? Yeah, I think with Sancho, that depends, right? If he is content with keeping his current wage, and right now one of the big issues with Sancho is that he's unwilling to take a pay cut. So 300,000 pounds. Let's have a look. How much is 300,000 pounds a week? So it's 52 weeks in a year. That's 15.6 million pounds, which times 115 is 70. Let's call it 18 million euros. So that is what he makes a year. Now you have to take into consideration that half of that is going to the tax man, So let's divide that by 2. So roughly he's on 9 million net per year. 9 million euros net per year. So,
all right.
Is that completely out of the realm of possibility for Beşiktaş? I don't think so, because we're paying Rafa 6 million, we're paying Orkun 5 million, we're paying Tammy 6 this year, but we'll be ending up paying him 7 a year. So 9 million a year is it's still a lot more. Is it possible? I think it. I'm not saying it would be financially responsible. I don't think it would be. Doesn't mean it's impossible. But I think Sancho, without him taking a pay cut, or without Manchester United paying at least 20, 30, 40% of his wages, I think it's impossible, honestly. Obviously, on paper, we could do it, but it would be too much of a stretch, I think. What?
Nice shirt card.
Oh, did he change up? Oh, maybe it's the same shirt he was wearing.
Okay.
Same one, yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Maybe I just didn't notice it earlier.
I mean,
all the same.
I don't know what do you guys think? Because I mean, 9 million a year net for Sancho. That's insane, right? Like,
yeah. The moment we paid, all the math came in on Rafa's salary and everything last year, I feel like I just lost the ability to have these conversations. Like, I don't understand anything that we're doing anymore.
No, like, I understand that. Like, I think one of the things with Sancho is if we... Look, there's a lot of pressure right now to sign a winger. I think if we sign, for example, let's say Václav Černý. Let's say we sign Černý this week. I think that takes off a little bit of pressure from the board to sign another winger. And I think what you can...
Subscriber.
First
Subscriber, thank you very much. We're getting really close to that magical...
The first assassin.
1,000. But see, what I think is with Sancho, realistically, if we would get him, I think it would be towards the end of the window when all the other options have been... we hit 1K subscribers, by the way. Thank you very much.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we've hit 1,000 subscribers. Thanks everyone for subscribing. Don't forget to hit the notification. But yeah, so with Sancho, I think the most realistic scenario to get Sancho, I think, is the end of the window when Dortmund, Juventus, all the other clubs that are potentially interested in him weren't able to find a deal. I think then Manchester United will be open to a loan, and they will also be open to covering part of his wages. I think that's when Jadon Sancho becomes realistic. The problem is that the pressure is really high to sign a winger right now, and especially a left winger. And if you're gonna sign Sancho, you shouldn't sign another left winger, because Sancho should play on the left. That's where he flourished at Borussia Dortmund. One of the big mistakes that Manchester United made with Sancho was playing him on the right in order to play Rashford on the left in his first season. And that's something that, worked adversely. So I really hope that, I'm kind of of two minds in that regard. Like, we could sign Černý, or we could sign another right winger right now and maybe play Kenny on the left. I think Kenny is perfectly capable of that. But the question is how hard do you want to go for someone like Sancho? I don't think it's completely impossible to go for Sancho, but I think we need to be patient if we want someone like him. Jonathan Rowe,
I will say this though, Con.
Yeah.
Given what Serdar has already said about what's coming, I feel like I'd be perfectly content with Černý and Kenny as our options, but he's kind of promised something of a stature that's like, even I'm almost like, whoa.
I mean,
what are we talking about?
It almost has to be someone like that, right? Like, Rashford's off the table. He's gone to Barcelona. Like, in terms of...
Maybe Sterling,
but he's 31 years old, and it doesn't really fit what we've been doing, right? Like, we signed Jurasek, 25 years old, Orkun, 24, Tammy, 27, Ndidi, 28. We haven't signed a single 30-plus-year-old player, and I think the last position you want to sign an older player is on the wing, right? Because those guys have to make the most amount of sprints per game, alongside with the fullbacks. So I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? about this? What do you think about Sancho, about Johnson Rowe?
I think if we can get they've painted. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I mean I've already said a bit, but I mean I think that they've sort of painted themselves in a corner by promising a big, high-profile signing in such a way that it. Like I've been perfectly content with like the Leon Bailey rumors, the Czerny rumors. That's another big
one, yeah. I mean, but perfectly content. Like, I mean, Leon Bailey is an expensive player too, right? Like.
Yeah, of course. No, and like I was watching, to see the reaction. Where is he at now? Is it Aston Villa or West Ham?
I think the biggest issue with Bailey is the injury history, though, right? Like he's had a lot of injuries.
But even with that, all of the Villa fans were kind of like, oh, we shouldn't let him go now because we'd be letting him go for like a low price, and he's such a capable player who is like they don't like the idea that they'd be selling low on him. So it's an interesting. I don't know. Like I like in a way. I like none of the wingers I've heard about. Even a lot of the even like people were really down on Okafor. Like I was kind of okay with that. Like I feel like there's always going to be a somewhat glaring deficiency with someone we bring in, just given the profile of who we are. We've always talked about this. That there's always like that one caveat that you hope they can overcome when they come to us. Like with Quaresma, it was this sort of flop label and can he handle the pressure and all that. Yeah. And then he obviously was able. So with Sancho, the question is like. Jadon Sancho's almost like, I don't know, what would be the drawback? Like the reason I don't feel like it's realistic.
The drawback is that he's a massive flop. Like Quaresma was a massive flop.
Is he? But he's still young enough that.
Yeah, but Quaresma was 26 when he first came to us, man.
That's true. I mean, he would be a very Quaresma.
Sancho was 25, so it's very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so far was a bit.
I don't know. Maybe that's our next Quaresma.
He flopped at both Man U and Chelsea. Not so much at Chelsea.
He didn't flop at Chelsea. I don't think that's fair to say. I think at Chelsea he was good, but he wasn't worth the money that they would have had to pay. So they took essentially a fine in order to not to have to trigger his clause. Because you need to keep in mind he's a £300 per week player, and he wasn't willing to take a pay cut for Chelsea. And
I wish he was at £300.
And like, if he comes to us, he's guaranteed to be. He'll play whenever he's like, You can't pay that much for a guy who's like, is he competing for a starting spot? Like, no, that guy's got to be like talismanic for your club, right? And so, again, like for us, that wouldn't be a question. And I think it's like, we're paying a lot, but he's. Like the number one guy you slot into your
biggest concern,
your lineup sheet.
The biggest concern I would have is. When he was 18, 19, 20 years old and he was playing for Dortmund, he was phenomenal. I posted the stats earlier. He had in the 2000s...
Didn't he whoop our ass?
Yeah, you think he was part of that? No, I think he might have been gone already, actually. I think he was gone already. But that was Jude Bellingham.
I feel like I remember him kicking our ass.
Jude Bellingham.
You're right.
So in when he was 19 years old in the 2019-2020 season, I think, he had 39 goal contributions, 20 goal and 19 assists for Dortmund. That's almost 40 goal contributions at 19, 20 years old. That is absolutely insane. But he had like 3 really consistent good seasons at Dortmund in a row, and then he went to Manchester United, and obviously his productivity dropped. But my biggest concern would be not so much the fact that his productivity dropped at Manchester United, but the fact that he went back on loan to Dortmund and his numbers didn't pick up again. Like, his numbers weren't insane again. Because, like, okay, he's 25 right now, but he feels like he's been around for like 10 years already. And, like, in potential, I think he is a player that could come into Beşiktaş, could come into the Super League, and for Beşiktaş could be a 30 goal per season contributor like Rafa. That's his potential. But the reality is that in the last 5 years or so of his career, he's been like, instead of a 30 goal contributor per season, he's been like a 10 goal contributor per season. And to me, that's a big risk.
Yeah, I understand completely, Ken, where you're coming from, and you're certainly right that his numbers never reached the height that they were at before. at Dortmund. But see if you read about that his stint, his second stint at Dortmund, he's seen as one of the key players that took them to that final in 2024. So you see he's very important to that, and I think the only reason why they didn't keep him is because the cost was just too much for them.
Nasser just said that.
Yeah, of course. No, of course. And I think, I do think that if we were to get him, I do think he would be a success. I have very little doubts. Yeah. I don't think he's a particularly high risk move, honestly. Yeah. I think he's almost a guarantee, but the cost would be insane. And I think he would be good, but would he make the difference between us finishing third or finishing second or first? Like, would he be able to help us win the league?
I think he could. Question.
Yeah. He could for sure. But I do think, like, to put it in an Özcanism, I think he's the type of player. If you're gonna spend that type of money, I think you have to win the league. I mean, he is young enough, though. I mean, that's worth pointing out. Like him, Tammy, Orkun, Jurasek. Even Ndidi, like, you don't necessarily have to win the league this season, but you have to win it next season or the season after, right? Like, in the next 2 to 3 seasons, you have to win the league. But they're young enough.
What I'll say is that it puts the pressure on Ole to get results this season far more than otherwise. Like, you at least, if we don't win the title, you want to feel like we're close. Yeah. Or like, all we need is like maybe 1 or 2 more little pieces.
But on the other hand, of course, we're also, I mean, that's what we're building towards, right? That's our goal to win the league, whether it's this season or next season or the season after. I mean, and of course, if you bring in a player like Jadon Sancho, I think you're gonna be a hell of a lot closer than if you bring in, with all due respect, Václav Černý. I think Václav Černý is a good footballer. But I don't think he's necessarily a massive needle mover. I think Jadon Sancho, the potential he has is, I think he's probably on the market right now in the sense of, like, I think he's the most comparable to Quaresma in the sense that, like you said, like, Quaresma was kind of labeled as a flop, and Sancho was labeled as a flop in that, and he's one of those players that has this negative stigma around him, which works in our favor. But at the end of the day, there's still other clubs. Dortmund want him. Juventus want him. Like, it's not like there's no competition for him. By the way, I'm gonna bring up some numbers here. So these are the stats for Leon Bailey in the last couple of seasons. Now, obviously, these are just these are not in-depth stats. These are just like goals and assists. Yeah. I'm gonna bring up Jadon Sancho.
Edin Lozana subscribed to the channel.
Aston Villa 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. That's a fair.
Hey, another subscriber, Edin Lozana. Welcome.
Lozana? Like the team?
Lozana.
Like the team we're playing, Lozano or
No. Lozana. Lozana.
Okay. All right, let's have a look.
Yeah,
so these are the numbers next.
Not a spy.
These are the numbers next to each other. On the left, you've got Leon Bailey. On the right, you've got Jadon Sancho. And either of you want to volunteer to run these down? Maybe.
I can do it. I'll start with Leon Bailey. He starts with Genk. He has 9 goals and 6 assists. Follows that up at Leverkusen in half a year with no stats, but he looks like he played minimally. 2017-18, he blows up 12 goals and 6 assists. Follows that up with 5 and 3, then 7 and 3, and then the next season he plays 40 matches, which is a career high at that point, and scores 15 goals and has 10 assists, which promptly earns him a move to the Premier League, as you'd imagine. The next season for Villa, he plays somewhat minimally, only a goal and 2 assists, but only in 18 matches. And one imagines maybe some of those were off the bench, or probably there's an injury involved there or something. 22-23, he plays in 38 matches, but he has 5 goals and 4 assists. Kartal is trying to sneak in your eyes over there above the... see him sneaking around. There he is. Peekaboo. And then finally, 23, 24. If anyone has babies, this is good entertainment for them. But he has his first real good year in England, 14 goals and 13 assists, 7.2 average rating, in 52 appearances. So it looks like he was fully healthy there. He can go to... And then finally, last year, it falls off the deep end a little bit. 38 appearances, 2 goals and 4 assists. Only a 6.8 rating. So not great, but those, coming off a good season.
Yeah, but those numbers in terms of appearances really aren't that bad, right? Because Leon Bailey, the main
there's only one year that's bad.
The main worry for him is his fitness, but really, other than that first year at Villa, he had 30 plus appearances in every season, right? Close to 40 appearances in every season. So it's really
and those 10 appearances for Leverkusen, people have to recognize that's in the second half of the season, which means he played in 35 matches and had 9 goals and 6 assists before the winter window for Genk. So he was having a hell of a year in Belgium.
He was amazing at Genk, I have to say. And you guys know, but my team in Belgium is Genk. Well, team in Belgium. I don't really spend time supporting any other team than Beşiktaş. But when I was a kid, I was actually a pretty fanatical Genk fan. But I still follow them, and both him and Ndidi were really good players at Genk. So we have a little bit of a history with ex-Genkies recently. Omar Colley was another one, by the way. He played for Genk as well in that same period.
So did Bailey and Ndidi play for Genk at the same time?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Wow, that could be a tie there for people looking for tea leaves, reading the tea leaves and whatnot. Anyway. Moving on to Jadon Sancho. Now this is where things
relax, take it easy. Leon Bailey is Jamaican.
Have some tea, you bastard.
Leon Bailey is Jamaican.
Ooh.
I mean, they should have played that "Don't Worry, Be Happy" or something. That would have been a good hit. If it would have been Bailey.
About a thing. Every little thing. All right. Anyway, 2017, 2018 was Jadon Sancho's first. He played minimally. 12 appearances, 1 goal, 4 assists. Next season, however, he's on the map. 2018, 2019, 43 appearances, 13 goals and 16 assists, 7.5 average rating. Follows that up with an even better season somehow, where he has, in 44 appearances, only 1 more appearance, but 20 goals and 19 assists, and even a higher average rating. And then the fucking next season, granted, he plays in 6 less matches, but 16 goals and 18 assists, and an even higher average rating. It's fucking crazy. The drop off, obviously, at Man U down to 5 goals and 3 assists. The average rating of 7 is still quite high. Granted, given the standard of play over there. Next season, slightly improved in 41 appearances. He has 7 goals and 3 assists, slightly higher average rating, and then in 2023-24. He appears minimally in England, goes back to Dortmund, and plays, again, not even that much there. Right? Only 21 appearances, 3 goals and 2 assists, 7.4 average rating is solid.
That's obviously when he had the falling out with Erik ten Hag. We should ask Nasser if he's still in the comments. Nasser, how was Ole's relationship with Jadon Sancho? Do you know if they had a good working relationship or a good relationship in general? And do you think that he could potentially play a part in luring him to the club? Would love to know your take on that.
And actually, that's a good. By the way, one has to make note. We didn't say this at the time, but apparently Ole had a huge role in bringing Ndidi. Right, he was the guy who supposedly brought that over the finish line. Still rumors, so maybe you don't want to put too much stock in it. But yeah, supposedly Ole had a big role in getting Ndidi over here. So, maybe that's going to be our wild card. Option, getting Ole involved.
I mean, let's get to the comments, because I think Ömer has a very outspoken opinion on Jadon Sancho. But let's start with where you left off, Sinan. But let us know what you guys think of Sancho, Václav Černý, Leon Bailey, Jonathan Rowe, any other wingers we've been linked with lately. Please let us know your opinions in the comments, and we'll get to them. And I think that's going to be the closeout for tonight. We're going to finish it with this discussion about the winger transfer.
Yeah, for me, the main thing with Sancho is see if we can give him the wages he's wanting, but we don't hear anything about late wages or wages not being paid, and the wages are paid in a timely manner, I think that's fine. But if we're going to run into problems because of this, they should stay away. It's that simple.
Of course.
That's my opinion in all of these transfers.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say,
if we can actually finance it and not run into any issues, do it. If not, don't.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah.
Don't give out checks that you can't cash.
No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we shouldn't have signed Abraham. We shouldn't have signed Orkun. We shouldn't have signed any of these players if we can't afford to pay them, right?
Yeah, and just fingers crossed.
Yeah.
That's not going to be an issue. I mean, you'd always think that if they're doing it, they'd cost it out first and see if we can afford it really. But we know
you would hope so.
Yeah, we know it's people that have been following this club for like all of our lives.
Yeah.
We know that that's a lot of the time not the case of Beşiktaş.
Guys, knowing Serdar Adali has all these ties to like horse racing and stuff, but like on the back end, right? It's not like he's like a gambler. He like runs the show, kind of. You know, what is that expression about Vegas? Like the house always wins, right?
Yeah.
So,
but he is a gambler.
So maybe that's what we're counting on.
He's the definition of a gambler. He was the CEO of the Turkish Jockey Association, which is literally gambling.
And now the famous jockeys, like in our videos.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe that's how we're gonna pay for these salaries in the end.
With horses.
It's more.
With horses. He tried to do that once before.
Good, well-placed bets. Well-placed bets. No, not maybe. It's more along the house never loses side.
Yeah.
Maybe he's cashing in on everyone else's bets.
Yeah.
He gets a cut.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there was all this talk about the video. Did they drop a cliffhanger? It's funny because Nasser was like, "Did they drop a cliffhanger towards the end?" And then later on, he's like, "Everyone's clutching at straws here. Like, you're the reason." No, I'm kidding, Nasser. You're fine. Grey Wolf says he wishes Sergen would be a part of these videos. Yeah, I mean, he is a club legend. It's
he should have been the one to hand over the shirt to Orkun, I feel. But yeah, I mean, I think his ego is too big, and that's the difference between him and Shifo Mehmet. I think Shifo Mehmet is very happy to be involved in this, and you know, as much as I love Sergen, I think, you know, that's one of the big drawbacks from him, right? Like just I don't know. Do you think he would, if he was asked?
He's been as well about certain players and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it doesn't really matter because he's not had a chance really to say anything about the new transfers yet because he's yet to renew his contract with Echo TV. But the fact that he has said some not so nice things about other players in the team, I don't think it's a good idea for the club to work with him just now. I think that could maybe piss off certain players, and so I think it's best just to stay away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. There's a lot of things that are a shame in that whole story. Anyway, Grey Wolf says at this point they should make a mini series with these videos. I mean, maybe when all said and done, and we can put them all back to front or front to back, we'll get an interesting, like a movie length feature. If we make all the moves we need to, anyway. Carlito, really good stuff considering they knocked these out in 24 hours. Nice to see all the actors willing to be available. The actors, that's available on such a short term. Quality is miles away from the others. Yeah, as we were saying earlier, we all definitely agree there. Grey Wolf, Man United. Sancho is described as taking it easy in the video. Song is relaxed, taking it easy. Oh yeah, that was that thing that Cartel was bringing attention to. Nasser says, I'd rather Ndidi focus on training with the team and building his fitness so he's ready for the first league game rather than playing on Thursday. Okay, I thought you meant rather than being in the video. That's a little harsh. Okay, yeah. Rather than, you mean, he doesn't want him, or he doesn't care if he was registered in time for St. Patrick's. Nathan says he would have had to be on the list before midnight on Wednesday, Central European time, whatever the hell CET stands for, or it's a moot point anyway. Hard to say when the contract was officially inked. Yeah, that's why we don't quite know if the paperwork was in before he arrived, or whatever the deal is. Anyway, Finnish Kebab says there was a second penalty for Galatasaray today. Yeah, I didn't even see how the game ended. Probably for the better. Grey Wolf says I got 2 penalties. I don't waste any time. Nasser, at Leicester, he often had a more, we're talking about Ndidi, he often had a more limited passing. Oh, we already read this on that was a live read. He got 5 assists last season. Grey Wolf about the jockey, yeah, we got that. Nasser says, Ndidi's not a deep-lying playmaker, but he can keep the ball moving, play progressive passes when needed, and win possession high up to start attacks. One thing to note is that he's strong in the air. Defensively, I read that on air. Atil said he's never played for possession-dominant team. We read that already. And he said, yeah, probably the best example to work off of would be a Leicester championship season where they won the league or something, which we did read off shortly thereafter. Deniz Ince, which I think this is a new guy. In the next transfer announcement video, the idea that the one riding the motorcycle will be Beşiktaş's Tüpraş Stadium, and the one he brought in will be Jadon Sancho comes to mind. I don't know who Razgatlioglu is,
no idea,
but
maybe some sort of motorbike racer or something.
Yeah, motocross guy.
Yeah, I've got no idea.
Yeah, me neither.
And then we have another maybe new guy, Onur Yildirim, says Jan Gboho, ? I saw that was a rumor going around. Is he the Toulouse guy?
Yeah, he is, yeah. But
not familiar with him, no.
I've got no knowledge of the player. I don't know what position he plays or anything about him.
One thing I'm not fond of is they're talking about how we'd have to pay $12 million for him, and for a guy who I've never even heard of, I think I'd rather spend.
And what's his name?
You know, whatever.
Jan
Gboho, Gboho.
If he's really good though, it could be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's the right. Maybe that's a good like scout transfer that we've been waiting for.
Gboho.
Yeah,
yeah. Gboho, Jan Gboho.
Yeah.
He's 24 years old. Number 10 jersey, right-footed, 7 million estimated value on FootMob. Last season, 33 appearances, 5 goals, 4 assists. Season before that, 19 appearances, 4 goals, 2 assists. Season before, about 21 goals, 1 goal, 3 assists. I mean, look, 24 years old, that's not super impressive for a 24-year-old player, honestly. He could be really good, obviously. He could be like the next Rashid Ghazal for all we know, right? Like Rashid Ghazal didn't have particularly impressive numbers before he came to us, but he did have a little bit more impressive career with Lyon, Roma, and Leicester on his resume.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look too impressive, does it? And another thing to note is that in possession is listed as attacking midfielder. We don't need another attacking midfielder.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not. Definitely is a. That sounds like a false flag operation right there.
Yeah, agent business.
Yeah, let's have a look at this.
Anyway, we have Cengiz Özdemir, who was our new subscriber shortly thereafter. He says, "Nice to see a podcast in English about the Turkish league, and we're not just about the Turkish league, but we are specifically about Beşiktaş. So I hope you're not here for anyone else." Umer Günal. You're such a bastard, Umer. He goes, "Hey, you Turk, why speak English?"
So by the way, they won 3-0 and 2 penalties. Oh, the second penalty was in minute 45 plus 12. What the hell?
Yeah, imagine that.
So also, the Galatasaray badge fell off on Berkan Kutlu and Barış Alper Yılmaz's shirts.
On their shirts?
Yeah, so it shows you that actually take my quality, man.
Well, they gotta cut costs on glue since they paid 75 mil for that fucking game. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we've got Eren, who I think we've seen before. He says someone in the group chat meant he's in the group chat.
Yeah, of course, from Australia.
Someone in the group chat meant that's Eren.
He's in Vietnam, right? No, was it Vietnam? No, it was Thailand. He's in Thailand right now, but he's from Australia. Yeah. Hey, Aaron.
Yeah. He's been on a late night tip with us a couple of times recently. Yeah. We've been agreeing with each other, so he's definitely a smart guy. Just kidding. Someone in the group chat mentioned that Musrati hates Beşiktaş. I didn't see that, but I haven't been on the group chat today, obviously, for this.
I think Ömer probably.
Do you guys know anything about this?
I think Ömer probably.
Ömer, yeah. Mr. Positive.
I don't think so. I saw a video recently of him interacting with fans, and he was very all smiles and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, I think a player whose career trajectory takes a nosedive at a club will not have warm and fuzzy feelings toward that club, whether it's rational or not. I personally don't think that he got a fair shake at Beşiktaş. I think he kind of got sabotaged by circumstances, also a little bit by the fandom, especially media. The media definitely sabotaged him. But also, he's also kind of just fell victim to the club being in a really dark period, and he wasn't. This is gonna sound harsher than it's intended, but he wasn't good enough to fight his way out of that, and I think he kind of dropped his head.
Or even, maybe to make it sound a little better, it just wasn't quite what we needed, right? Like,
no, but
at the end of the day,
also I think, there's you have to keep in mind, he was 28 years old, and the biggest club in his career that he played for was SC Braga. With all due respect for SC Braga, it's a great club in Portugal and all that kind of stuff, but they are not a tradition club. They are not a championship contending club. Like, he isn't used to dealing with the intense pressures of playing for a club like that. Whereas Orkun captained Feyenoord to the championship at 21 years old. There's a very big difference there, I just don't think that Al Musrati had the mental strength to cope with that. I think if you would have slotted Musrati into a team that functioned well already, and his profile would have matched what the team needed at the time, and if you would have slotted him in that, I think he would have been a great success. But the problem is we tried to build on him.
Yeah, see if we played like a 4-3-3 and he was a lone six with two 8s, they could also share the defensive duties.
Yes,
I think he could have worked a lot better. But if you're signing a player like that has like limitations with his mobility and stuff like that, you need to pair him with guys that are going to compensate for his deficiencies, and that's not something we done. Jetson Fernandez obviously is a ball winner as well, very good at that. But he was also balling forward a lot, and if he's balling forward a lot, and then Rafa, you've got a second striker. Musrati was often left alone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think he's not got the defensive ability, and I think the main thing is he's not got the motor to defend that full zone himself. If he had two 8s in front of him, maybe one of the 8s was someone that kind of stayed back and helped with the defensive workload, I think we could have been talking completely different about him just now. But that's not the route we went to build the team, and if we weren't going to go that route, he shouldn't be signing the player in the first place. It's bad planning.
Yeah, bad planning, exactly.
I mean, it just seems like we started playing and then shifted, the next window, basically, which, whatever, it is what it is. Carlito says, hold the presses, you have 1K subs. Congrats, guys, well deserved.
Thank you.
Umair says, episode number 351, the 1K special. Nasser, let's go. And then Carlito, look at them being all blasé about it. Well, we're used to success. What can we say? I'm kidding.
Now we just...
Umair says Fop is harsh, but he didn't come back. I think he's talking about his time at Chelsea. He didn't come back anywhere near expectations at Chelsea.
Well.
Nasser, Sancho wasn't a flop at Chelsea. They offered him a contract, but he turned it down because of the pay cut, which is what Cartala said. Umair says, if we're going to give someone $9 million a year like wages, they should almost be a guarantee. When was the last time an English player from the Prem with mental issues delivered?
I think
well, to be fair, we've only had one.
Sancho is different. I think he's 25 years old, and
that's different mental issues. Yeah,
I think characterizing him as having mental issues is very harsh.
Especially if you're comparing him to Dele Alli, who legit needed he's seeking a therapist and had issues with drug use, and that's a whole and I sympathize with
exactly.
Well,
I think Dele is facing a very difficult moment in his career now as well at Como, where he's apparently been asked to leave or been told that he isn't included in the plans, and he's apparently contemplating early retirement. He's like 27, 28, so it's
29, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, look, that's he's had a tough career, but I don't think you can compare Jadon Sancho's career trajectory to Dele.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet, anyway.
No, I don't think you can compare.
Yeah.
Sancho is you can compare it in the sense that I think Dele Alli and Sancho both exploded on the scene at an early age, and they both kind of, lost steam a little bit. But like we said, at Dortmund, Sancho was good. At Chelsea, Sancho was good. I think if you sign Sancho, I think he will explode, honestly. But
yeah,
I honestly, I think if I were Galatasaray, instead of signing Leroy Sané, I would have, you know, they could have spent that same money on Sancho. Obviously, they would have had to pay a fee, and Sané was free. But I think Sancho would have been the smarter move. He's 25, whereas Sané is what, 29 or 30? Yeah.
Isn't Sané's salary like ridiculous?
It's the same, I'm sure. Yeah, it's very similar. I'm sure.
Like,
I think it's
to what
I feel it's in the double digits, man.
I thought it was like 10 million.
Yeah. No. I think 12 or something like that. Yeah.
Something crazy. Yeah. So that's even way worse than Sancho. Probably.
Also paying on 25 million.
I mean, you know, you have to keep in mind, like Sancho, he's on a very high wage already, but would he be willing to come to Turkey, you know, and not get a pay bump
without a
bump? Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, some players are content with, like, for example, Wesley Sneijder, when he was asked to leave at Inter, he turned down Premier League clubs because he didn't want to drop his wage. So he came to Galatasaray instead, so he could keep the same wages, same net wages. So he didn't actually, I don't think he got a bump. I just think he retained his net wage. So if Sancho,
which could be
like if Sancho's
game, right?
That's possible if Sancho was willing to do that. But like, I think his net wage being 9 million, that's a little bit of a stretch for us. You know, I think if it was like 6, 7, we could probably do. But you know, but then you could also say, okay,
and now we have
if you can do 6 or 7, why don't you do 8 or 9, right?
Yeah. And here we have a Nasser dump of like a bunch of here. Because he had a good relationship with Ole, who openly said on the overlap that Sancho was brought in as a right winger, even though he preferred playing on the left. Ole had been chasing him for 2 years before finally getting the deal done. There was a lot of admiration and trust there from the start. Ole was the driving force behind Sancho's move to United, but they didn't get along enough together for it to fully develop on the pitch. I have my reservations about Sancho for the money he'd likely cost. We could go after players who fit our needs better and offer a more guaranteed impact.
I don't know about the guaranteed impact. I think Sancho's impact would be pretty guaranteed. Yeah, I think given the lower level of the league, also the Conference League, you know, we'll essentially be playing lower level football for the entire season. You know, like the league, the Conference League, it's not Europa, it's not Champions League, and it's not the Premier League, right? So, like, I think in that, I think he could thrive. For sure, if he takes it serious.
And of course, guys, the thrilling conclusion to our group chat. There was one last message in which Emir Edishir says, "Sa."
No, that means Salam Alaikum.
Salam Alaikum, yeah.
Salam Alaikum. Sa. I thought he was starting to write Sancho, and then like got logged out. His internet died. No. Someone else said salam alaikum, so alaikum salam to them too. I don't remember who that was. But yeah, that's it for the group chats. That's it for the, not group chat. For the group chat.
Yeah. It never
check out the QR code right there.
The fun never stops.
That's right. As soon as you're done listening, hop onto the group chat, because the three of us will probably be there in a moment to you know, say hi to everyone and the usual, check in on the latest rumors. Especially if you're like a night owl in Europe, there's like a whole scene of like North Americans and Canadians and Aussies and whatnot, where we're like, the conversation seems to never end. So check in with the QR code right there. I don't know, man. I think I could probably take us out. Is it time for that?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for all the 442 of you who tuned in live, and thank you to the people who are watching this on delay, of course. Don't forget to hit that like button. Please leave a comment if you're watching on delay. You weren't in the live chat. Please do leave a comment. We do appreciate that. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be notified of any future episodes. Like Sinan said, take out your phone, scan the QR code here, and join our WhatsApp community. Head to patreon.com/Beşiktaş podcast if you want to become a Black Eagle VIP member and support the podcast. It's just $1.99 per month. Or alternatively, you can hit the join button on YouTube and become a YouTube member. I do have to say, you get largely the same content as you would on Patreon, but sometimes there's gonna be copyright sensitive content that we cannot publish on YouTube. It will only be published to Patreon. That's why Patreon is $1.99 and YouTube is only 99 cents. So if you want to support the podcast, that's the perfect way to do it. Join us on either one of those platforms, or double down and join us on both platforms, because there are exclusive perks to both platforms. The exclusive perk to YouTube is simply that you get cool loyalty badges in the chat. If you're a member, you get a Beşiktaş logo next to your name, very similar to if you were to be a YouTube member on Beşiktaş's channel, which I highly recommend you also do, of course, but that is significantly more expensive than becoming a member of the Black Eagles podcast. That's all the plugs I have to do, so Sinan, feel free to take us out.
Yeah, and to co-sign that you get more for your buck with Patreon, if you're a Schwarting Report listener, a Schwartingista, if you will. I just made that one up. But yeah, if you watch that, if you're on Patreon, I upload now is my new thing, all the slides that I create to relay all the information about the rankings and the power rankings, the monthly kind of, I write little comments for each player. So yeah, you'll have access to all of that. You can take a closer look. So yeah, check out our Patreon for sure. But anyway, for sure, like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification button, comment after the video is posted if you're watching this, not live, because that's helpful too. All that good stuff. I will tell you guys, our top fans for this episode, Nasser finishes number 1. I think that flurry of Jadon Sancho information at the end secured it for him. Second place, Nathan Davis, Mr. Baseball himself. Grey Wolf, number 3. I'm in 4th. Actually, Stream Elements, because we had all these new subscribers. It got a pretty high ranking today. But I was also commenting and they're correcting people and steering people away from spurious allegations about the Ndidi video. So yeah, I was up there, but then I don't know who CDC is. Oh, Carlito. So he's in 4th place, or 5th place rather. So yeah. That's it. M. Sarper is the last one. He's 5th. Sorry. Carlito was in 4th. I'll take myself off the list. But so with that said, we will be back shortly. Do not turn on your TV on Sunday expecting to watch a Beşiktaş match. That game has been postponed. We'll tell you when that's postponed to, when that's decided. So that means our next match is this coming Thursday against St. Patrick's Athletic. It is our 3rd St. Patrick's Day this year for those of us who celebrate with green beer or what have you. But so that one's actually, check your local listings. It's 45 minutes earlier than this last match. So
8 Central European, 9 local in Turkey. So
2 p.m. here in New York. A good late lunch for us here on the East Coast of the United States. But so yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and head to the community, and we'll do a watch along on Thursday, and you can join us on Discord to watch the game together. Yeah,
that's right. You broke the first rule of Fight Club, kind of. Yeah. With that said, and this is like more timely than ever. Let's go Beşiktaş! Peace out, everybody! Who are our contributors? None other than Oskan, no comment, Delavachi, Nathan, not a Bobert, Mount Davis, Finish, not the Swedish Cabal, Kristen, Barky Gray, Michael Berry, Umer, Mr. Positive Brunel, Jara, the Irish Conhensi, Mario, 1 and a 2 and a 3, Vargas, Niall Tarif, Sebastian, the not sporting director, Heinous, Daredevil, the vigilante tick, Nasty Nas, Nasser, Mr. Manu / Beşiktaş, and of course the indubitable, the indomitable, the indefatigable, the financier, the Dutch Eagle. Peace out, everybody. Bam, bam, bam.
Don't forget to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. Goodbye.
All right. I love